Welcome to Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto, and thanks button in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to, first and foremost, new Patreon member, Amish Earther, also Giuseppe Montesano, Naughty Thumbnails, Mitch Kennedy, Original D-Rose, Rod, The Name's Burley, Twad Wazzle, Jason Hornsby, Christoph Fournier, Flat Earth Travolta, JMels24, Unimento, M, Iron 26, Endless, Goldie McKinnon, Phoenix Rising 86, Retro Bill, More Books, Cannabear, Bogey, Michael Kahn, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Mel B Styles, Hairy Blade, Mobile Max 777, Rob W, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Maria Nealand, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Henrik 86, Abraham Mohammed, Skeptic 936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, Tina Baker, David Wayne Foster, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
And what can you say to that? When you can't say 90 degrees, when you can't even speak it, you know, you got a boot on your neck. And it was just that easy, but it was just excellent kind of a model, wasn't even a debate. Just it was an excellent cutout of just the, scenario of this whole, of all this information. This information for a newbie, the way Nathan handled it with Bev is just, I think anybody can get it. It's so simple. So thumbs up on that, guys.
Yeah, I thought trying to put everything into two dimensions to claim that horizontal isn't a horizontal. Like, how are you going to sit there and say mean sea level is just a point on the vertical? I mean, it's just as dumb to say that vertical is a point on a horizontal. I don't know. I mean, if all you're looking at is that horizontal, that's true. If all you're looking at is that vertical, that's true. But that's not all we're looking at. It was the dumbest thing I ever heard.
That's right. That's right, John. They isolate what things are oriented to. They take out what things are oriented to. And when they use one measurement, see, he had no problem with a vertical plane, did he? Now, when you put a perpendicular plane to that one, he's got big problems because that one's supposed to curve. He can't have that, can he? He can vertical plane all day long. Oh, this point, that point, they all line up, perfect zero. Oh, yeah. He's got no problem with that coming out of his mouth. But as soon as you flip that thing perpendicular and you start talking about horizontal planes and 2 points, I mean, his wires come apart.
Well, see, he was taking the topology of the sea, right? And what its levels rise and fall. But you measure it against the mean sea level, which is the average of all those flat level planes.
John, please tell me, because I had a question. I wanted to get to this before the show started. I was going to ask Nathan, but you're perfect. What kind of person brings to the table if you say the Earth is a plane? Now, it's been called flat Earth. We know it's a plane, right? So, but when someone comes and says it's not flat, as if to say, we are saying it's smooth flat, right? I mean, what's the personality type that brings that back here and says the Earth's not flat, there's hills and valleys, right? Now, what do we do with this kind of person, right? I
Can I
mean, come
answer
on,
that?
No,
Can I answer that,
right? Yeah, go
if you
ahead.
don't mind? When you use the word plane, you're speaking in geometric terms. When you use the word flat, you're not making a geometric claim. Plane, although it describes, it's also defined in geometry. Flat is not part of geometry. Flat is a description. So if you took the whole of the latitude and longitude grid, which would mean you'd have a circumference of over 70,000 miles, I think 77,000 or whatever it is, miles, right, to the whole outside of that, 90 degrees south, then Mount Everest would be less than half the height of a human hair in comparison to that. So you could not describe that as acting as for flat, right? Because flat is only a description. So if somebody uses the word plane, you can be held to that geometrically. But flat is only describing. My table is flat, but at the microscopic levels, it has undulations, just like the Earth. But the Earth overall could not be described any better than flat. But once you say plane, then you can be held to a geometric claim. So flat.
well,
People are trying to
Well,
change away from flat
okay,
and use different a topographical plane, all this stuff. No, just say flat. That's it. And you're not making a geometric claim. And if someone wants to
yeah,
hold it to a geometric claim, ask them, am I making a geometric claim when I say flat? And if they say yes, then you can correct them and point out that flat is only a
but
description.
but is that even worth the time of negotiation? What they're coming back with, what the feedback is that they're coming to us saying that we're claiming that the earth is smooth. Smooth. I mean, it's just ridiculous, right?
but
Yeah,
I mean,
the
it's
yeah.
so,
thing is,
what it is to me is
hold on.
it's just contrary. It's contrary. It's contrary.
But the
Everybody
thing
knows
is,
it's not
hold on.
smooth,
If you're talking about the
right?
scale that we're talking about when we talk about the entire Earth, smooth is fine
Mm-hmm.
because of the scale. Neil deGrasse Tyson would explain that to him as well. You're talking about if you were
Well,
big enough to hold the Earth in your hand and you ran your hand across it, you would not feel the mountains or valleys. You know what I mean? You, it would be smooth
yeah.
to the
Well,
touch
it's kind
because
of like
that's the
it's kind
level.
of like touching your own
Yeah,
skin,
smooth
isn't
is
it?
touch sensitive.
It's kind of like touching your own skin, like touching your own skin. If you go if you zoom in, there's lots of peaks and valleys going on, but it's sensibly smooth, right? I mean, so that's what we're talking about. When you really zoom out, is it smooth? But that's not even worth talking about to me, right? I think what they're
No,
trying to
that's just
do is
symbology.
poison the well just by making us look silly, by saying that we're claiming that the earth is a smooth, flat surface. And what they make sure to bring up is there's hills and trenches in the ocean, dummy, right? I mean, as if it's if a third party is listening, I'm just saying that some of these anti-flat earthers they're just sticky annoyances, right? That's the purpose. That's it. That's all they have to
Well, see,
do is
Anti-flat earthers.
take
How about
people off
regular
track
flat
and be
earthers?
sticky.
well, the
What's
mean
that,
sea
Neil?
level is perfectly flat, though. The mean
True.
sea
Now,
level, right? The line you will measure everything
true.
against is perfectly flat.
Well, now hold on. Now hold. You're right. Absolutely. The way that we measure it, right? Now we're bringing it to the books. Okay. When we do construction, all this kind of thing, right? Sea level is the orienting line. Okay. That's the orienting line. That's the water table. There's not multiples. Okay. That is how high water on this earth is, right? And that has been so ingrained and well known, right? Long, long time. So that, in that aspect, of course, I'm not trying to confound anything here. I am pointing out that there's a caliber of personality that comes here that knows better, that its sole purpose is to confound, to make this look silly, right? And in any way, with a third party in mind, a new listener, they know that. As long as, it's almost like the goal for some of these anti-flats is just to be annoying and sticky. And that's all they got to do. It's not about being right or anything, just to not lead people to the right place. It's weird.
I saw over the weekend. Hey, Heroes. I saw over the weekend that they put out a modus tollens. Let me just make sure I'm trying to get it right now. If P, the Earth is flat, then Q, we won't measure elevation changes. Not Q, we do measure elevation changes. So not Q, not P, the Earth is not flat. But he's working outside see, if he said, if P, the Earth is not a horizontal plane, then he could say that, right? Because then it would work. But if you say flat, it doesn't work. Because flat is a descriptor. It's not part of geometry. Flat just describes. It's a claim of no shape. You know what I mean? So his modus tollens falls apart by the use of the word flat, the very thing he's attacking, for no bloody reason. You know what I mean? He should be using the word horizontal plane, the term not, because that's geometric then. But if you're using the term flat, you're not using geometry. So why are you trying to debunk a description with geometry? Like if I say a football, let's say a soccer ball to the American people, or a basketball is, if I describe that as flat, then I'm wrong, because it's not flat. Right? Because anything that has a shape is not going to be flat. Can't be described as, sorry, that's not true. Two-dimensional shapes will be flat. But the point is that I can't describe a basketball as flat, because that's an incorrect description. But I can describe my table as flat, yet that has the same exact undulations and elevation changes based on if it's up at the mean, let's say, the mean horizontal through the table, that has elevation changes based off of that, above and below it. But the point is that I can't describe my table in any other way but flat. There's no other way to describe it. I even ask people, how do you describe it better than flat? And people say things like topographical plane, but that doesn't describe it better. You're trying to complicate it. Just flat. It is what it is.
Hey, Brian.
Go on, Steve Rose. I'll say that in a second.
I was gonna say, I was gonna say I agree with you 1,000%, and I agree with what he's saying too. Whoever that was, because what's that term you use? Pedantic. They want to be nitpicky about, they know what it would mean. That's why I don't even go through it. And it's not even people that come into these discords. It's my own family and friends. I just tell them, okay, it's not a sphere. It's not a ball. It's not a globe. That's all I can say to you. Okay. If you want to nitpick because you want to talk about golf course mounds and hills and valleys and all that, fine, do that. Even when I give them basic metaphorical, child-minded descriptions of, like, my own famous one is the soundproof thing. If you laid a big, long, wide pad of an egg crate, as wide as a football field, and you put a little ant on it. Think of that in that scale, that you are the ant and you are traveling across the plane. I try to give them all kinds of mental pictures, and they still say, well, that's not flat. And I just, like, he's like, I feel what he's saying. You don't want to go through that little negotiating and try to break it down.
People have forgotten about why we call the Earth flat in the first place. Why did we describe it as flat? Why did anyone ever start describing it that way?
Because it's not a globe.
Yeah, but that's the thing. This is the part I want to add in at the end. I think John wants to get a point in as well. That the only reason everyone, and I said this to Bev a good while back, the only reason anyone ever started describing it as flat is because people were calling it a globe. What's the complete opposite of a sphere? Flat. You couldn't find something more opposite than a sphere, than flat. Go on, John.
Well, I was just going to say, mean sea level, though. It's funny that Bev brings that up and doesn't acknowledge what it actually is it is that perfect plane of reference from which everything will be measured. It is absolutely flat. I mean, it has been measured time and time again, and if the average is taken, it is a perfect horizontal plane.
Well, what's that place? What's that place y'all talk about that you can see the reflection of the sky for hundreds of miles? What's that?
Salt flats?
Okay,
Bolivian salt flats.
okay. The Bolivian salt flat. I think that covers enough square miles or radius of miles that pretty much crushes any type of implication of even suggesting that it is a curved surface on this earth.
Here,
Unless you're talking about the disco ball,
there's
which is
another.
stupid.
Sorry, yours. Okay, there's another way of looking at it. This is a man who claims to love Euclid. All right, it's an angle measuring device, the sextant. So is a carpenter square. You put a carpenter square on top of a table that Brian was describing, it's going to show perpendicular, a vertical and a horizontal. You're going to say that table's flat, but on the microscopic level, there's gaps in between. But, you know, for all essence, it's 90 degrees, a carpenter square. Sextant, you take an angle above the horizon and you subtract from 90. This is a man who studies Euclid, who says perpendicular, like you say, I'm thirsty. He knows it's just not a vertical. He knows you got to have the horizontal. He just won't go there because he's not one of us. That's it.
Well, I think that
Well, they do go, but they do go there.
They get
They
almost
go
there.
They mean sea level like it's a throwaway line.
Yeah, but
They
one
keep
straight
saying-
line, John, vertically is not a 90.
No, mean sea level. They kept invoking it and then denying the definition.
I know. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the one line that nobody here claims makes a 90. Neither does Euclid.
Like their
You'll
argument
need
was
that
so
90. The thing is those 2 points that you get from that baseline. Once you come down perpendicular and it goes horizontal, when you get 2 points on that baseline, that's where Nathan got him, right? I mean, because it just continues from there. When he couldn't say that it was a right triangle, a right angle, right? He wouldn't admit to a horizontal with 2 points. They can do one. They can do 1 point on a horizontal.
Ballers do that.
They'll drop
Ballers
one.
do that.
They'll drop
that's not
one
the
plumb
problem.
butt. That's
That's
all
not
they
the
can
problem.
do.
I'm
As
sorry.
soon as they start referencing more than one, they unravel.
But that's
More
not the
than one
problem. The
plumb
problem
bud, they unravel.
problem is that they don't understand what an elevation angle is. An elevation angle, right, can be used with celestials, but also can be used for an angular size measurement. It's always a right angle triangle. It's not just 2 lines meeting at a vertex. That's what they don't understand. An elevation angle is defined as having an adjacent and a hypotenuse and opposite. This is what they don't get. Where I tried to tell them, I went and tried to do a presentation on this, just a very basics presentation on the celestial navigation argument on BEVs last year, and they were just wasting my time. They're laughing at me. They even said, but if you shorten hypotenuse, then the distance is wrong, so it all doesn't work. It's like, no. Do you know what I mean? They don't get it. They think you're supposed to be solving for the length of sides with celestial navigation. They just don't get it. They don't understand. If they understood what an elevation angle was, then they'd understand it always has. Yeah, if they understood what an elevation
It's
angle
exactly
was, then
what
they
I'm
don't.
saying.
If they understood, once they leave
How can they not?
if they understood what an elevation angle was, then they'd have to have a change of mind. What?
Yeah, but how can you not logically get it? Like, if they really wanted to get it, if somebody said, listen, I'll give you $1 million if you think you can get this, I bet they'd be getting it real quick. It's like, oh, yeah, the hypotenuse. Oh, so you swing that hypotenuse out, and all of a sudden your distance is greater. Oh, okay. So you don't actually need the exact height to the star. Oh, okay. That hypotenuse is the swinging arm, isn't it? Yeah, but you have to have that 90. Oh, yeah. That also means the baseline is going to be at the same elevation point to point. Oh, yeah. It's so simple because it makes sense like that, right? But the thing I'm trying to bring up is the personality. What is the target market here, right? I mean, there's a lot of spinning wheels with these kind of people. Do they really
Can I
get
say
it?
something?
I think they can. I think they're being contrary on purpose. And it's not the most beneficial thing. Do these kind of people have to be dealt with? Yeah, they do, because they're going to be around. It's just part of society. It's an element of personality, right? But here they are. They do know better. They're just, I mean, if this thing has gotten bigger, this movement has gotten bigger. It's almost a responsibility at this point. If I were to ask Nathan, could you go back to just working a job? I bet
Not
I bet
almost.
Jaron might be able to, but I don't know if Nathan could at this point, because I feel like there might be a sense of duty to this thing now, even though he may not be making a whole lot of money doing it.
There it
If he
is.
can make more money,
I keep telling you,
well,
it's another reformation going on.
and if this thing is bigger than that, right? And I think it is. I think it's extremely important, right? What is the target market here? Because what are we going to shave these people off? Keep dealing with them? They're going to amass. It's like you got to deal with folks in certain ways, right? I mean, that also is done. People get assigned to however whatever their behavior is. That's their hierarchy, and that's where they'll be placed. So there's these personalities that come here, kind of like Chaiki. Chaiki, good morning. But it's just contrary. I don't think there's a better word for it. They
But
know
then, but
better,
check this
you
out. Then
know.
there's another.
And I mean,
Then there's other personalities too that, and I'm so thankful that he blocked me. Blood is thicker than whatever, or blood is flatter, whatever the hell his name is. Who I consider like a kind of a weird narcissist type of person, but he insists on saying that we got it wrong, and then uses this Republican versus Democrat thing, and and we don't know what we're talking about. We're just as bad as the Globers. And at the end of the day, you nip it in the bud. Look, it's not a sphere, it's not a ball, it's not spinning, it's not globular shaped. That's all to it. Whether you want to get into details of how deep the oceans are and how wide and vast the oceans are and all of the different variations of topography, whatever. At the end of the day, you know what it is. Okay. So
Yeah,
the
but
most
Steve,
simple way to say
you're
it is
missing the point.
flat earth. Huh?
You're missing it. It's just flat. You
I
don't need to
know.
say
That's what I'm
anything else.
saying.
Nobody
I
can
got
refute
that.
that.
I got that. But these people think, aren't we talking about these guys that think they can refute it in their heads, and they just come in and they do like this guy is saying? They just come in as toxic poison, and they just be irritable, obnoxious
You're being toxic
a-holes.
now. Shut the
Oh,
fuck
Chaiki,
up.
please.
You're
Chaiki, what's a
boring.
vertex?
Chaiki, go feed your dog. Go feed your
Chaiki,
dog.
hang
and
on,
listen.
Heroes. Let me have Chaiki. Chaiki, what's a vertex? How many lines for a vertex are needed?
What?
What
What?
does
Well,
what
he's just about to
constitutes a
start the show, I
vertex, Chaiki?
Two.
Thank you. Tell that to Bev.
One and all.
Yo,
Good morning. Good morning.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good morning. Good morning.
Morning.
Hello. Good to have you all. Should you do a quick fire bit of housekeeping, as it's the start of a new week? Yes, Nathan, we're all really keen. Well, that's good to know. We're going to do it anyway, regardless of what you said, so that's good. Any
Well,
evidence
it
of a
felt
physical...
rhetorical anyway, that question.
Well, it'd be nice to get a yes, but any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge? That's a horizon, formerly known as Earth curvature.
You're not getting a yes there.
Well, I have a bowler from years back. Well, I mean, he's around but years. He's trying to somehow geometry the optical phenomenon of an horizon. I don't like. I won't even tell you. I won't even tell you his questions. But they're trying to turn it into a geometric point again that moves around.
Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Hello.
Hello, Arvin.
You know it's
No.
spinning because there is no Coriolis deviation or any sign of motion.
They claim there's 15 degrees an hour drift, so to claim that the proof of Earth spinning is the fact that there's nothing being observed is absurd. We don't observe drift. That's the debunking of their claim that we will see the drift at 15 degrees an hour.
Yeah, but the drift still exists within the geometry and the math. But it doesn't actually happen, right? It's because of terrestrial refraction.
Okay. And the elves are real in the Tolkien novels. But does that mean that elves are real? I mean, they exist in the stories.
Yeah.
In the textbooks and in the language. No,
But they existed within Tolkien's mind before that. And if it exists in his mind, well, then it means that it can originally come from God and exist in other people's heads too, so it arguably exists.
Praise be to Shiva. I'm a gravity believer in that case.
Well, there you go.
Well, yeah, I'm
If he
converted.
lived in
Let's
the
pack it up,
Matrix.
lads. If it exists in your mind and you write it down and people believe in it and maybe you invent a language and learn it, then it's real, according to Arwin.
Yes, now you're getting it. That's heliocentrism in a nutshell.
Yeah, we're all kind of here because we've escaped that, though, eh? I mean, some of us. I was listening to your conversation in the pre-show. Fighting flat with flat. That's the way forward. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Sorry?
Any evidence of the distance to
Have you a
the sun?
better version?
Distance to the sun, you say?
Third time's
Well,
charm.
it's over there.
Take
We
that as
got
a
an
no.
angle. You could think of it having a distance based on a presupposition of the ground we're standing on, and then you derive the maths based on that presupposition, and then you claim a location that you can't really confirm because nobody's ever going to get there in order to actually confirm that.
The angular size of the
Hold on, Brian. No, you'll need a flat Earth for that. So when you say you derive some maths, what you mean is you'll measure a flat plane. That's what you actually mean, isn't it, Arwin?
Oh, yeah, no, I wasn't specifically excluding flat Earth. It's just the same. It's like, oh, it's the sun over a disk at, 3,000 miles. Like, oh, cool.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
that really worked out mathematically, didn't it? So what's the confirmation it's actually there?
Okay, there's only a couple of claims when it comes to distance to the sun, and as far as I can ascertain, have both come from the same place. In other words, there's the heliocentric claim of a globe Earth at 93 million miles to the sun, based on an R that's been derived from a heliocentric assumption, and then a distance to horizon measurement by Al-Biruni to give you an R value to be used in scaling with Venus as the same R value as Earth, so that you can scale it with Kepler's third law of interplanetary motion. Okay, so we all know about that one because we say that string of words so often. However, there's another claimed to be, and I was doing air quotes, claimed to be in air quotes, a flat Earth claim of a distance to the sun and indeed moon, when we are, I don't want to say force-fed, because that's the wrong words, but at the feast of nonsense, when you first arrive at flat Earth, there is an hors d'oeuvre on the table that you can just pick up and pop it in your mouth without any particular worries, and it's a claim that has you measuring the height of the sun or moon. Now, in recent days, Brian, I believe, was the first to do this, at least a couple of weeks before anybody else, at least. And he was pointing out in terms of when you're measuring an angle, when you're doing celestial navigation to, say, the sun, if it's at 45 degrees now, well, later it's at 40 degrees, and later it's at 35 degrees, and so on until it reaches the horizon. Well, obviously, if you're going to use trig to derive the adjacent, no, not the adjacent, What are you driving on the triangle, Brian?
The opposite. You're looking for
The opposite, of
length.
course. It's the opposite your position you're measuring from. Opposite, right? If you're trying to derive the height.
Jason,
Sorry, go ahead. Who was that?
if you're taking it from the elevation angle, you're deriving the adjacent side, aren't you?
I thought it was the
opposite would
adjacent.
be the
That's
height
what I
at the
said
start.
first, isn't it? The opposite. It's on screen now.
Listen.
Which,
Name
well,
is
yeah,
Look,
but
let's just not get lost in hyperbole. Height. Are we all happy with height? Height.
yes.
Right. You're trying to get the height from the triangle with trig, right? As on screen now, right? If you're using that methodology, well, as it moves throughout the day, it's getting closer and closer to the horizon. Now, the way I've paraphrased Brian's original genius rebuttal to their claim that flat earthers have got a height, because, no offence to Debate, but he was the first person I heard saying, well, the sun or moon are 3,000 miles away. Because if you do the trig they use, I mean, the trig that they bend a spherical triangle from the base being straight to curved, it makes no sense when they do it. But when they do it, obviously they've cherry-picked particular points to match up with their heliocentric assumption when deriving R and scaling it with Venus that just happens to match the maths. Now, I believe that is also on the table for your average Joe Normie, who's not a flat earther, to pick up, so that they can ascribe those reasonings behind their distance to the very far away sun, as Red Rhetoric did with his maths. But that isn't the official rhetoric in terms of deriving distance to sun. The scaling values with Kepler are. But the normies, both flat earthers and globe believers who gobble at the feast of nonsense, end up with this situation where you've got a false dichotomy. Flat earthers saying it's 3,000 miles or 3,000 kilometres. It's been such a long time since I gobbled that feast of nonsense. But the globe earthers saying it's 93 million miles away, but based on a measurement that they can do themselves. So it's science, right? You know where I'm going. Anyway, that whole situation is a false dichotomy. Number one, until you got to that table of feast of nonsense, were you ever inclined to assert a distance? When you knew it was 93 million miles away, were you inclined to agree, disagree, claim a new distance, challenge it based on the changes that have occurred throughout history? No, you just accepted it based on face value from science, right? Well, it doesn't mean that when you relinquish that 93 million miles away sun, and every sod in the comments is saying, well, how far away is it then? That you suddenly have to give them an answer based on some nonsense rhetoric of measuring it when it's moving and getting closer to the horizon. In other words, you're shortening that length of the triangle with every minute that passes. So, no, you're not going to be able to get a distance if you're a flat earther, but you were told you could. And, you know, Eric Debay still does. I'm not knocking Eric Debay, although many do. I'm just saying that that's a feast of nonsense rhetoric that's been spewed out by Eric and others, that you need to suddenly have the other half of their very useful false dichotomy. But when there's all said and done, which one's going to be proven to be true when both measurements are shown to be flawed because it's moving towards the horizon? But yet we've got Kepler. So globe Earth right after all. The rest of you normies just didn't understand the complexities of heliocentrism.
Yeah, but what happened there was many years ago, I remember back in 2015 time, Glover started saying, if Earth was flat, the sun has to be 3,000 miles away. It was them that started that nonsense, and other people joined in with it on the flat Earth side. What they're not telling people is they're using the exact same thing when they're doing parallax. Because all they're doing, like these days, they'll talk about a chord through a sphere. But I remember them detailing parallax as you measure it off a complete flat Earth, then you add the R value, which is exactly the same thing as putting a chord through a sphere, right? And using that as your horizontal baseline. What they're doing is they're taking the very plain measurements of the celestial bodies that they're trying to strawman us with, and then claiming via R value and parallax that means that the celestial body is whatever distance away, the sun is whatever distance away. Right, this is the way they try to wrangle it in. So they're attacking you and charging you fraudulently with a measurement that they actually use. They're using those actual supposed distances, not us. And they've been holding us to that for years, or they tried to for years. Not me, but I've watched other people get sucked into that, right, for years. And
Well-
that's what they've been doing. But it's them that's doing this.
Before
They
you
have to do
launch
that
into
for
this,
parallax.
we got with the excellent dissemination of what's going on. However, the only bit I disagree with is when the us and them bit. The feast and nonsense, right, is the same dish for both sides. You ever had like a posh wedding or something, and they have like the men with the silver trays walking around? They got really complicated pastries that are delicious but tiny. And somebody spent a considerable amount of time wrapping up some tiny little bit of sausage in a bit of pastry and then just the right amount of olive so that it still rises. And you chuck it in your gob and you go, that's delicious. Well, all the ingredients in that tiny little hors d'oeuvre are the same. So if you gobble down at the Feast of Nonsense 93 million mile sun versus 3,000 mile sun, that's a complete dish. And it doesn't matter who eats the dish. You'll take whichever side. You might focus on the taste of the olive, but you might focus on the crispiness of the pastry. It doesn't really matter. It's all the same dish. The Feast of Nonsense is this complicated arrangement of stuff that anybody can eat, and depending on your palate, you'll extract whatever flavour you like. But the complete recipe is the important bit. The recipe typically consists of a false dichotomy. Who's off mute in G+?
I am sorry, I didn't realise.
Bloody alarm's going off. Me that's got the alarm going off. Give me 1 second, my alarm's going off for some reason. It's a Lego brick, it's not even an alarm I use.
Me.
He got his bit of his own desserts there, huh?
Thanks, Brian. I thought it was me at first. I was kind of worried.
Shut up, Lego brick. Yeah, unfortunately, the Lego brick's on a diffuser panel, and I was shoving another diffuser panel underneath it, and I wrenched it off the wall. It's on a French cleat, and everything on it, including that Lego brick alarm clock, flew across the room, and the panel landed on me. Fortunately, not destroying it. But now it seems to have decided it's got going to have an alarm at 1 o'clock, which is nice. So I'll have to figure out how to pull the batteries out of that so it doesn't do that every show. Anyway, it's a complicated dish. And every dish on the Feast of Nonsense is like it. They all consist of a false dichotomy. Globe Earthers say, in this instance, 93 million miles. And then part of the dish is how they measure it incorrectly. It's done on a scale. It's done with Kepler. We all know that. But they've all got these, well, look how we measure it. We can do this in physical reality. Therefore, it's physics. It's science. Okay, right. Well, they're doing it wrong. But then we take their methodology and measurement to say it's 3,000 miles. It's all part of the same dish. And you can pick all sorts of different examples of stuff that you just suddenly arrive as a flat earther and you've got all these prepackaged arguments. And you seem to, as a complete noob, know that the globe earth has got a counter argument to what it is and what you should be arguing against. And if you don't know, somebody will tell you, oh no, you're supposed to fight against this in this instance. Am I? Yeah. You're supposed to claim this and they're supposed to claim that. And that's how you argue about it. Now, put it in your mouth and swallow it. Get out of here. You silly noob. Come back for more whenever you're
You can
hungry.
only swallow it. I'm surprised Alwyn's not chipped in. You can only swallow it if you assume it's physical in the first place. And that's the trick with that one, the false dichotomy. They try to force you into this trigonometric way of measuring an angle to a star and meaning that you can then do trigonometry. Something that until 10th brought all this stuff up. It was a difficult thing to deal with. It was just, as Owen would say, physicality, assumption bias. You just had to marvel and say, I don't know. But with this, we've now got a flat Earth proof and a flat sky proof. It's what we're measuring is distance. That's what that angle is. It's not a side length. It gives us a distance. We're gifted that because of the way in which the two parallel planes work. But like I say, until you've got all that, you are, in a way, stuck with the false dichotomy until you understand those things. I was guilty of it. Topic I didn't used to like.
We all were. We've all
Well,
we've all fell victim to the Feast of Nonsense at least half a dozen times. Every single one of us on this panel, without exception. I mean, Brian figured all this out a couple of weeks before we all did, and you know, there's that. But
it's never going to stop, is it? Go on.
that's it. We all fell victim to it because there's a convenience to it. The moment you get over the disbelief and the shock and awe and the paradigm change, you're into, well, I want to share this with others. And even normies will have a certain amount of feast and nonsense coursing through their veins for some reason. I don't know how it happens. You stumble across a normie and suddenly they've got this ingrained knowledge of space that you're like, why are you parroting this off to me? Are you a space enthusiast? No, but I know all about that space is real. Listen to me disseminate some dumbed down nonsense that you've heard 30,000 times in a really crude manner, because that'll show you.
I heard of one of Eric DeBay's. I heard one of Eric DeBay's his recent video there yesterday, and it's called "How to Shut Up Flat Earthers."
I don't get the title.
Right? Sorry?
I don't get the title. He's juxtaposing.
Yeah.
It's circumnavigation. I watched the video, and I was a bit left kind of confused, if I'm honest. I mean, I get his point. Obviously, it's a fairly clear point. But go ahead, Brian.
Well, yeah, I was nearly leaving a load of comments telling him to shut the F up and stop talking rubbish. Because
what was the name of it? What was the name of it, Brian?
It was How to Shut Up Flat Earthers Forever. And he came up with one thing, right? It's like, no, you're going to need a lot more than that to shut me up. But the point is that he pointed out how we are not free to travel south of 60 degrees south, past 68 degrees south, right? So leave us travel, leave us experience, leave us find out why, right? If we're all so wrong, leave us do that. Now, I understand when he said that, I was like, yeah, okay, leave people have free travel. Yeah. If it's not a big secret, then leave people have free travel. Leave them explore Antarctica, what they claim to be Antarctica, whatever it is, south of 60 degrees parallel, right? But then he said, or show us blah, 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 blah. It's like, are you stupid, Eric? It's like, show us. Why would anyone accept anything they'd show you? They've already showed you what you're looking for and what they claimed to be showing you. And it was a load of nonsense more than one time.
Shows how dumb I am. So his point was, the point of his video is to say, look, they've locked off Antarctica. So his title is to say, how did they shut up flat earthers forever? They stopped you travelling. I just didn't understand the connection. I'm obviously a bit slow on the uptake, but there we go. Yeah, why would you demand that NASA tell you what the sky is, for example? What? Yeah, they've already lied to you once, so just lie to you again.
Yeah, exactly. So him saying that leave us have free travel, and I would call it aided exploration, not like just go off into the wilds. Like I would want aided exploration, the same way as if I get lost in the jungle, that there should be able to be somebody come and help you and find you, right? That's okay. But when you start saying, or show us, blah, 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 a direct flight going this direction, it's like, Eric, just go ahead. I mean, why would you trust anything they tell you? No one's going to trust that they show you because they want to show you a load of rubbish that supports their rubbish. Do you know what I mean? It's naive to expect your enemy to give you the evidence that kills their argument.
Yeah. If I may say something, I feel like they would have to take somebody, on the opposite side, say one of you guys, for instance. I just feel like if one of us would be able to go with while they're doing it and they do these things, it would be a good start.
Why?
It's not going to shut us all up.
Very telling. Hold on. Everyone stop. Hold on. Very telling. What's your name, sorry? Chaos?
This is Shen. Shen, yeah.
Shen. So what I heard then is, well, it'd be a good start if they could start to prove it to you by taking you on the exploration that Eric DeBay detailed. The first thought that crossed my mind, just to contrast that, was, why the hell would I need to do that? I mean, if I'm an explorer and want to find some new lands, I'm going to need the ability to go and find them. But beyond that, in terms of proving something to me, why would I need that? I don't need that. So no, it's flat. I don't need any of those things.
You wouldn't, right? You wouldn't, and they wouldn't either. So it would never happen. But if it were to happen, I would totally volunteer to do it.
I mean, if I'm getting a free holiday out of it, I'll be honest. and it was monitored, catered, yeah, I'd definitely do that for free.
Do what?
Go on a free holiday.
Exactly. What are you going to see? What's going to prove the Earth's flat?
Not hear
Do
me.
you have to see a secret Nazi base, or
I just told you it wouldn't achieve.
Lemuria?
I mean,
Is
there
that
might
where
be
we're going?
there might be a motivation for a glober to show me how globe shaped it is on that trip, and I go, oh yeah, by all means. And when they sit me down and go, oh, you've got to listen to this lecture in the in the studio that we've got set up on the boat, so that you can have it all explained to you for an hour a day, I'll be like, oh, that's a bit of a downer. But yeah, I'll listen to you lecture me about how it's a sphere for an hour. No worries. And then I get to spend the rest of the day just looking at the sites and seeing the stuff. Excellent. Yeah, I'll do that. But in terms of what they'll actually achieve when they sit me down and tell me about how their claimed route proves something, I'll be like, no, we're navigating this entire journey flat. If we get lost, we're going to be using the stars to find where our position is again, and that'll be done flat. So I know that we're going to navigate our way flat, and should we get lost, the last resort backup method is to measure it flat with the stars parallel to our flat plane that we're travelling on right now. Now, nothing that you'll do in terms of how we're navigating and how we're travelling around on this boat or plane or whatever we're using is going to be sphere-shaped, ever. So are you going to convince me in some hall for an hour a day that what we're doing is somehow spherical? They're not. So it is just a free holiday, with some numpties that think it might convince them of a sphere. They might be along for the ride as well, but I don't care about them particularly.
How was any of that going to make the geometric? How was any of that going to make the horizon geometric? None of it.
Exactly.
Just to go back to Debay's point, this is not one I like anyway. It's one that's existed, that the Antarctic Treaty in some way proves the Earth's flat or not a ball. I can't make that connection. At best, it's kind of supporting evidence of you being lied to. Because if you can't make peace anywhere else, why can you make peace there? But as to the nature of Earth, to me, it's a kind of a non sequitur argument.
I don't know. Do you not think he gets a pass? I get it. It's an early newbie entrance to a conspiratorial aspect of flat Earth. They've locked down everything. What is it? The 60th parallel? Is that where they've locked everything down?
Why does it prove flat? Why can't it just prove that there's Nazi bases in Antarctica?
Other than the geography being very different to how a ball is suggested to be. Now, I don't think there's an ice ring around us. And yes, I know from past history that we've found, quote, new worlds in, quote, space. What are you saying, flat earther? That they found new worlds in space? Yes, space used to be out towards the horizon, and look on some old maps where they call them new worlds. Have you heard of a third world country? Now, developing country? Well, I wonder why they changed that vernacular. Well, because that's what they used to be called when they were discovered, the new worlds. And when you travelled out to the horizon, not knowing what you were going to find, you were travelling out in space. Well, what's space now? Well, it's the sky vacuum above your head. And where are the new lands that we could find? Oh, well, not anywhere else. And this is Debay's point. Not where they were previously found, going further away out in the direction that's straight from where we knew we had land. No, we don't do that anymore. We're told we circumnavigate. Well, that was his point. And you're saying, I don't agree, or it's non sequitur. I mean, I don't necessarily think it would be the approach I would take, but I'm not Eric Debay. But I think we're being a bit hypocritical.
Yeah.
I'm being specific there, Nathan, when I'm saying citing the North Atlantic Treaty and not being able to go south of 60 doesn't do anything other than demonstrate there are control systems. Well, what they are, you can't draw a conclusion from that. You can't say they're hiding an ice wall. You can't say, like I said, you could just as easily say it's where they bundled Hitler off to, and they've got a lovely continent there, because I've seen pictures from Admiral Byrd's thing where they've got freshwater lakes and stuff. None of that conspiracy can, I'm nearly there, realize, none of that conspiracy can be used to validate the nature of the Earth. And that's what I'd say I would put it in, not in the feast of nonsense, but recognize that it doesn't demonstrate anything other than you being lied to.
Yeah, I mean that's what's most important to some people. Now, first of all, the difference in, us saying flat Earth and probably 95 of the other flat earthers saying flat Earth is that they have a conceptual idea of the new Earth that they haven't been able to see. That's what Eric Dubay is talking about. It's not like he's setting out to prove what we're proving or demonstrating what we're demonstrating or exposing what we're exposing about the geometry or any of that. But what he is doing is the same thing that you would. Well, here's why it's important to maybe someone who wants to discover that they've been lied to. If you have a girlfriend and you suspect that she's cheating, and your buddy goes, "Hey, why don't you ask her to look at her phone?" And then you go, "Yeah, that's a good idea." And you go, "Hey, babe, let me look at your phone." And she doesn't show you. Well, it just makes you so much more curious about what's in that phone. That's what it's like telling people that you can't go 60 degrees past south.
I thought you were going to
Exactly.
reference him back to debate. Roto, did you want to say something? You can be next, and then
I wanted to. I had.
Okay, go ahead, Roto.
I'll wait
then.
for Roto.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Yeah, Nathan, my friend, mi amigo, I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
Why do you ask the housekeeping questions?
Keep us frosty. Keep us aware of the arguments that have come to fruition, been fought over and won. It's to keep us all well aware of every argument that's ever taken place. The reason new ones get added is because we have new arguments.
What's the source of the arguments?
Us debating about it.
Are they globe arguments?
Some of them are overcomes of globe arguments. In other words, they're rebuttals to positions that globe proponents take. In the case of any evidence of the distance to the geometric edge, or ever ask for Earth curve, that's been adapted because of the black swan.
So the first question is what?
Typically, any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curve.
And that's been addressed with what? For anybody that's listening?
Nothing. There is no overcome for that.
Well, I mean, what do we have to say on this side about the geometric horizon? What do we have for that?
If the Earth was a sphere, radius 3959 miles, then every distance to horizon measurement could be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet as laid down in the Earth curve maths. Distance to horizon in the black swan is beyond the geometric limitations of an Earth sphere radius 3959. Therefore, the horizon is not Earth curve, and the Earth is not a sphere.
If you had never heard that, and you were fresh out of high school with the education, and you heard that, what would that do for your mindset as Nathan? What do you think? Would that be enough? If
it would be too much,
yes or no,
it would be too much. I wouldn't understand it. If I heard that just off the bat as a glober, I probably wouldn't understand it. It's indicative of the responses.
Do you have anything else?
Go on.
Is there anything else on the topic that's more easily digestible?
Yeah,
for someone.
Yeah, the one I always use, and most of the panel would agree with me. It's the easiest opener, which is debunking the sky vacuum. The whole heliocentric Earth in a sky vacuum, ball in a vacuum premise hangs on the idea that space is real. The space around it is the model that the model is named after. It's the heliocentric sun at center model. In other words, you've got the ball Earth moving around the sun in space in a sky vacuum. So if you ask somebody to tilt their head up and go, "Do you think that's a sky? Do you think that's a vacuum?" Or first ask them, preface it by asking them what a vacuum is, get them to detail it to you, then nod your head up and ask them if they think that's a vacuum.
So
is that it?
From the panel, or or any, well, just one more thing. Just looking for a hook, right? That what is a bit of information that actually gets a person that's in neutral to look this way.
I don't know.
What
I don't
nugget?
know. It's like saying,
definitely
it's like
get the Black
asking
Swan video.
it's like asking a razor blade what it's like to be a comb. We can't answer that. Can't. We can
Well,
ask. We can ask
well,
Dubay, and we can
personally-
ask Sargent. That's who we can ask those questions. Here at the tip of the spear, it's yes, it's sharp, but it's also specific. It's also designed for a very unique job. Is the job of the tip of that spear to neutralize newbies and no? They get near the end of that spear and their head comes off. It's just how it is. Now, we can't both cater to newbie who needs to be massaged into, look, I know you've got an idea about the Earth flying through a sky vacuum around the sun, and that's why we're turning and the sun's coming up and going down. I know you've got all those ideas. However, it's basically all wrong. Now, let me massage you into an idea of how the world could be with an ice wall around it and a 60th parallel that you can't go past and a North Pole at the centre and planes and boats traversing around in a circle when they travel west or east. Now, can you understand how that conceptually could work? You do? Well, there you go. Now you can relieve yourself of one paradigm and enter this paradigm, which has a whole load of hors d'oeuvres that you've already gobbled. You know, those hors d'oeuvres I mentioned earlier, you just swallowed about 5 without realising it. Isn't that amazing? Anyway, now you've got a nice little paradigm to replace your old one. Isn't that nice? Do we do that here?
No.
No. No, we don't. Unfortunately, at the tip of the spear, there's not much time for lunch. For sitting down at the feast of nonsense and saying, you might not want to eat that because it contains nuts. And by nuts, I mean several heliocentric presuppositions. Now, you can eat it because it looks like it's got quite a lot of juicy flat earth ingredients in there, doesn't it? Quite a lot of tasty measuring of moons at certain heights off a flat earth and travelling around in circles on a flat earth. Looks like it's flat earth related, doesn't it? Yeah. You might not want to eat that. Sod that. Eat what you like. I don't care. When you meet me with that stuff coursing through your veins, there's a good chance it'll get your head removed. Oh well, that's not my problem. I didn't make that meal.
All right, can I say something now?
Zeros has been waiting ages.
I was after Rodo. As far as the Feast of Nonsense or the non sequitur or category error, whatever you want to call it, I would say outside of celestial navigation, Black Swan, second law of thermodynamics, all of the things that we kick it here with science physics, I would say what 10th put up on there as part of a greater Feast of Nonsense, because it's the enemy, if you will, with documents. That document of the NASA document where it's highlighted, where they admit, and it's in all their documents, all military documents, all you see is stationary flat earth, stationary flat surface, whatever. To me, even though those don't rank in what we're doing here, still, I can understand if Eric Debay would use something like that versus the wall argument, because I was there. I was in the Feast of Nonsense. That's all I had before I met FED. That's all we have out there.
Zeros.
Can I finish? Can I finish, please? Can I finish, please? I'm speaking as an advocate for the normies who don't know FED yet and only know those ones with 50,000 to a million subscribers. Like Eric,
you have to preface it. You've got the mic. Go ahead. You have to preface it anymore.
You know what I'm saying? Okay, yeah. That's what they have out there, because we know that Nathan's not getting the love on the algorithm like Eric Debay and them, but they got something. They got Feast of Nonsense. They're not getting the good vitamins. They're getting fed mostly, GMOs, if you will, of nonsense. Granted that. But I was just saying, the thing that 10 put up on here is another part of that. But it has some substance to it because it's a NASA official document Freedom of Information Act, they're up there. And you can see them admit in their own documentation what we say, stationary, flat Earth. So some of the Feast of Nonsense things have greater nutrients and value than others. And Eric DeBay's wasn't on that level, but what Tim put on there, I like stuff like that because it's the enemy admitting, some of what we're saying. All right, that's it.
Yeah.
That's the distinction. Okay, so if you look at the sea sparrow stuff, there are some statements that NASA you allude to. They're quite clear
Eli, can you mute, please?
in what their implications are. Yeah, you demonstrate this has all been done on a stationary flat plane, as stated. But if we go to the 60th parallel, even if they say yes, we've militarized this zone, you will not get past. It doesn't have anything other than a sweet taste in the mouth. Yeah, but it doesn't support anything for me. Yeah, and it's not that you shouldn't discuss them or look at them or be introduced to the buffet, but you've just got to recognize what you're feeding on. Yeah, recognize what's a quality, nutritious flat Earth meal and what is just another amuse bouche at the Feast of Nonsense.
Well, I don't disagree with that. I do. I mean, it would behoove the person looking into this to know that there's a difference between the Earth being a level plane and delving into the history behind them lying about it. But that's the thing, it's not just about the geometry for most people. It's like, okay, it's flat, but then there's all this other stuff. All this other stuff being just, things that like, for instance, the cosmos. What the heck was I doing spending my time, thinking about that stuff for when I could have been thinking about where the edge is? Is there an edge? Where am I at? Is this place contained? All of these things are kind of not geometry related, but they're just as important. It's not important for proving that the Earth is not geometrically a globe, but it's important to the conversation almost equally for somebody who's new.
I agree, Eli, but then recognizing, like I said, what you're going to do, whether there is land there or not land there. How do we prove it? That's part of the limitation and recognition. It's not a fight you can have. You can fantasize about it. But for now, whilst your institutions are liars, you're never going to get to the truth of that. So focus on what you can prove to yourself.
Good morning, fellas.
Hey, Chocolate.
Hey, Chocolate.
You sound terrible.
Morning.
You might
Could
sound
I say
awful.
something on that document, them documents that come out from aerospace and NASA and stuff? They always preface something in there, and people generally look past it. Like, for instance, when D. Rose was referring to it there earlier, he said stationary plane, but they preface it differently than that. They say stationary non-rotating plane. Now, why are they adding in non-rotating and stationary? Stationary is in it's not moving up or down, and non-rotating is in it's not going around in a circle. Completely
Are you trying
unmoving.
to say they were ready for Dell?
Well, that nonsense came from them. That nonsense came from them. Do you know what I mean? Didn't it?
What he's saying
upward
is,
moving out. That's there. It's nonsense.
if you consider the hors d'oeuvres we've been using as an analogy, if instead of olives they're poison, well, these are the antidotes for the poison. So in other words, they're training a pilot, and regardless of what beliefs he may have about the spinning Earth or the rising up Earth, it needs to be stated explicitly at this stage, bearing in mind they know what indoctrination has been given to every single person that comes past that particular doorway. They need to counteract the poison in their bloodstream so that they know what they're going to actually do. Fly over the ground, considering it flat and considering it not moving. And when they state not moving, they say stationary, so that it's not ambiguous, and non-rotating. Again, completely unambiguous. It's clear what they're saying. Not moving in any way is another way of putting that, isn't it, Brian? But they've got to counteract what you might be believing it to be. That's spinning or moving up or down or left and right. Who cares? So long as it's explicitly stated. And antidotally, is that the right word, Adam? As an antidote?
Anecdotally. Well, yeah.
I have to read this on the back of that before anyone else goes or tend to kill me. It's from, what is it? Royal Air Force College, right? We've heard this before, but may as well go over it again.
You post it.
So, yeah, I'll post it.
I'll do some.
You want me to do it right now?
Because obviously
before I read it, or
yeah, if you can post it, I'll post it. I'll put it up on screen while you're doing it, and just because I'm good like that while you're doing it on your phone, because obviously you can't do both at the same time. I'll give us some soothing music. Dun dun
right,
dun 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 dun. Is that enough time? There we go. Look at that timing.
Thank you both.
Thank you, 10th. Okay.
So, Earthly, Andrew Hill, parentheses, in quotes, Darwin rules, okay, end quotes, 12th of July, page 127, close parentheses, says, quote, even in The Spectator, we rarely find serious assertions that the sun goes around the earth, end quote. One can, of course, believe anything one likes as long as the consequences of that belief are trivial. But when survival depends on belief, then it matters that belief corresponds to manifest reality. We therefore teach navigators that the stars are fixed to the celestial sphere, which is centered on a fixed earth and around which it rotates in accordance with laws clearly deducible from common sense observation. The sun and moon move across the inner surface of this sphere and hence perforce go around the earth. This means that students of navigation must unlearn a lot of the confused dogma they learned in school. Most of them find this remarkably easy because the dogma is as may be, but the real world is as we perceive it to be. If Andrew Hill will look in the Journal of Navigation, he will find that the Earth-centered universe is alive and well, whatever his readings of The Spectator may suggest. Darcy Reddyhoff, Royal Air Force College, Granville.
Beautifully read. Indeedy, unlearning the nonsense. Well, in this case, there's a new layer that we unearthed when we first became flat earthers that we fondly refer to as the feast of nonsense. That is to say, all of the rhetoric-based arguments for a globe earth stacked up in false dichotomy against nonsense that you haven't even learnt yet, that you're told you have to believe as a flat earther. Like 3,000 mile sun, ice wall, 60th parallel having armed guards all the way around it. Firstly, that is frankly stupid. To suggest that you can guard that amount of square footage effectively, people would be sneaking through if they were motivated to do so. That's the bottom line.
Well, the Marines said that they were watching 99% of the water, so they kind of claim that they do.
Yeah, I'm sure they do.
As stupid as it may sound.
Well, maybe. I'm sure they are, if they say so.
And there's also these reports of this one gentleman that keeps getting, I don't know where he's from. He's not from the United States, but he's been arrested 3-4 times trying to breach it. There's a couple of videos where pro flat earthers were on their vessels and they were trying to go, in an area away from that little peninsula area where the so-called, where you get to see the penguins and all that junk, where they let you go for the tour for 30,000, 50,000 allegedly. And they were stopped by a naval vessel.
I'm just going to stop
on
you.
video.
I'm just going to stop you for a second. I'm really sorry, Gyros. Right, let me give you a little hypothetical scenario. Right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the Hope Diamond. I'm going to show it on TV and show it being put in a vault. And that vault is surrounded by lasers. And that laser chamber is surrounded by a moat with sharks. And the sharks have got freaking laser beams on their heads. And surrounding the moats with the laser beam sharks and the lasers around the vault, I show a door. And that door is armed. It's got armed guards on it. Yeah? Now that is what I show the public. Then I show the public multiple people getting caught, and some of them meet a very grisly end, trying to get to the diamond. Okay, so we've got a scenario where we've got a valuable piece of information or item, in this case diamond, in a certain location that people are trying to get to and are getting caught. Meanwhile, the diamond is somewhere else, and the house is entirely CGI, and there are no people trying to break in. Now, does that change every news report I've just described to you about the men trying to break in, getting caught, some of them getting killed? No, it doesn't change that report. Does it change the CGI that I rendered in order to create a house that has the diamond in it? No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Does it change the fact that let's just say for the sake of this example, there isn't even a diamond in the first place? It doesn't even exist, right? But we're all focused on that diamond. We're all looking at the space that's supposed to occupy its existence and the people getting caught trying to get it. Meanwhile, in some other part of the magician's sleeve, you know what I mean? If this was actually a secret, none of us would know about it, would we? And if we were so inclined to say, oh, well, sod this, we have decided that we are not interested in their assertions that you can circumnavigate the Earth as a sphere, north-south. I'm just going to go out and find the new worlds. And we go out and our heads get blown off because there is actually armed guards marking it with radar and they're immediately intercepting any particular boat that tries to go past the 60th parallel. We wouldn't know about that either, though, would we? Right? That would all get hushed up very, very quickly. And we'd never find out about it because the media is entirely controlled. Well, when you know that the media is entirely controlled and you hear stories from the media of people going past the 60th parallel and getting arrested, why do you entertain any of it? Pray tell.
Well, I'm not talking about. Hold up, the reports did about that gentleman I said from out another country. I get that what you're saying on that, but the video that I said as far as the gentlemen that were in their vessel, it wasn't filmed by news reports. It wasn't filmed by the military or third. It was filmed by if you and Brian were on your shipping boat or whatever vessel, and you went out there towards the 60th parallel, and Brian's camera, cell phone or whatever, happened to see maybe, half a click away this ship coming towards them to apparently intercept them from their path of whatever angle they were going, whatever direction they were going towards that 60th parallel. That video there is what I'm speaking about as far as, and to suggest or imply that those pro-flat earthers did that to poison the well with a feast of nonsense. Yeah, you can say that. But then again, it's not that complex and sophisticated for them to have done that, had it on the camera, and happened to post it on their social media, just like we see other things on social media. It doesn't come from the news, but I understand where you're coming from as far as the guy being arrested in that tabloid, even though it wasn't on the news, it was on social media, outlets. And not all social media outlets are feast of nonsense. The internet is both got information that's actually going on and information that's been propagated as false narratives. So we have to
Yeah,
kind of
because
be in the
what
middle.
happens when those people who were allegedly arrested were part of the psyop? What if they were agents and they just staged the whole thing, just like Nathan said? They were the diamond. They wanted you to see them get caught just to show you can't go past.
Or
like that.
Or
I like
hang
that.
on.
I
Or
like that.
hang on. Or they already tell you that you're going to get arrested if you go past the 60th parallel. Public, it's known information. Go there, get arrested. Just like when I try to run into the U.S. Embassy in Dublin, I'm going to get put on the ground with handcuffs. I mean, what are you trying to prove? You went to the 60th parallel, you got arrested. Yeah, that's what they tell you is going to happen.
Nathan, may I transition to a question for the panel and the audience?
I'm going to go with no.
Okay. What do...
With that? No, that would have been spicy.
All right. Star-based reference navigation Earth-based reference navigation, and center of Earth-based reference for navigation. What do they all have in common?
They're all navigation. The clue is in the title for each.
That's not the answer. Next. Okay, more
Flat
clues.
plane.
More clues.
They all need
All
a
right,
flat plane.
start-
They're all done on a Cartesian grid.
Almost. It's all close. But let me. What is common with all three of these things? Let's explain each one. When you have a star map, you're not referencing the Earth. You're referencing the stars as a map. That's the equatorial concept. Equatorial EQ Mount telescope. They're referencing the stars based on the vernal equinox and a disk that goes all the way to the celestial sphere, one big equator, not just the Earth's equator. Anything above that, you see. Anything below that, you don't see stars. So that's that one. The Earth-based one is the one that we just heard from NASA. You know, hey, when you guys fly, just assume the Earth is stationary and non-rotating. The center of Earth reference is celestial navigation, which is you're on top of a dingleberry curved Earth, supposedly, but really all the measurements are being taken from the center of Earth. So sextant angles from hell with Danny Faulkner. What do they all have in common? The answer was given in my description. All are represented as stationary, non-rotating. All of them work on that basis.
Planes.
Isn't that interesting? Whether you use the star map, whether you use the Earth's surface, or whether you think the Earth's surface is at the center, all have to be stationary and non-rotating.
Planes.
Well, that's the NASA advice to their pilots. You got to assume the Earth is stationary, non-rotating. That's
Plane.
It keeps adding plane, but you're just not acknowledging a stationary, non-rotating plane.
yes, that's what I mean.
Indeed. Earth is flat, so it's not shocking. When you're navigating it, if you were to take it as read, the fundamentalist religious premise that we're on a sphere Earth, then as a plane operator, just invert the argument that Brian puts across regularly. It's one of his best arguments in terms of how the plane negotiates the surface. Now, to maintain lift, it's slightly nose up, right? And it's running parallel in level flight, as they call it. Well, that notion, when flipped on its head, and a sphere Earth taken into consideration, leaves a void opening up ahead of you in that circumstance. So you go into level flight on the ball. Well, below you is opening up at 8 inches per mile squared. Well, that means you've got more space to fly in under those circumstances. Yeah? Well, if you head towards the ground, parallel with your position when in level flight, under the assumption that no, the further I go forward, the more the ground will fall away ahead of me, I'm all right, you'll end up crashing into the ground. In other words, it needs to be made explicitly clear, no, you deal with it level. There isn't an extra space opening up ahead of you at 8 inches per mile squared. It doesn't exist. If you try and go into that space that would be there if the Earth was curving away from you, you'll crash into the ground.
Well, can I add a preface there, a couple of small caveats to what you said? This is for everybody. When you're talking about the plane having a nose-up position, you must add in above horizontal and avoid the word level, because level is a word that the ballers can beg the question with and start BSing somebody who doesn't know any different and start telling them level is equidistant from the center of a sphere. When you stick to the word horizontal, which is a constant orientation, it doesn't change. That means that to do what they need to do, what they would need to do to fly around the globe, would mean that at 550, once they reach cruising altitude, at that exact point, that's the proving point. Because if they start flying with an above horizontal pitch at that point, then it's not a globe. But If it is a globe, then from that point, they'll be exactly horizontal at that point, and then gradually over the course, from second to second, they'll have an accumulated below horizontal pitch that will, at 550 miles per hour, would accumulate to 7.9 degrees below horizontal per hour, right? So that means that they have to fly with a nose down below horizontal, at below horizontal pitch to go around the globe. Now, there's other caveats to that where
Just before you give them,
but
just before you give them, because that's where my point dovetails into yours, which is to say, you're suggesting, that's how I was trying to flip it back, because you're saying, in order to negotiate a sphere, you must nose down below the horizon, if you consider the horizon to be on a sphere, regardless of that part of the discussion. You've got to nose down to go round the curve of the Earth. Well, in my scenario, when I say you take Brian's examples, which is to say that you've got to nose down, much better way of phrasing it, below the horizon if you're negotiating a curved Earth falling away from you 8 inches per mile squared. Well, that being the case, you'll hit the ground, right? Because you follow it, nose down, and what happens? You hit the ground, because you're not nose up above the horizon, maintaining level flight, not hitting the ground, you're heading towards it, and it isn't opening up a void in front of you.
In reality, see, what in reality, you're not nosing down below the horizon, you're nosing down below the horizontal line that's parallel to mean sea level throughout the Earth. So you have a horizontal line that you've created at cruising altitude, and to go around the globe, you have to nose down. But once you nose down, this is important, you see. This is what people must understand. This is why I keep pushing the lift effect. Once you're nose down, then you won't have 100% positive lift. And with majority of wings, you have no lift. Right? You lose basically all lift. That means
you don't sure have, about this?
Hang on. Yes, 100%.
I'm going to try and counter it. I'm not global, but I'm going to try and counter it when you should. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, unless you've got an above horizontal pitch, you will not oppose 100% of the airplane's weight, because you must oppose weight with lift. So if you don't have enough lift, so let's just say you have a 2 degree below horizontal pitch with a cambered wing, and you have 60% positive and 40% negative lift. That means there's only 60% of the plane's weight being accounted for, which officially admitted by Boeing is a descent. You can't not descend.
Okay, well, that's where you overcome my little dance I was going to take you on. Right, so long as you, notwithstanding the fact that you would actually be in a descent, which is my point to begin with, right, that you're in a descent and going to hit the ground, right, notwithstanding that part of your disclaimer that you just gave, okay, I don't even bother now you've said that, because that undoes everything I'm about to say.
Yeah, because you won't be able to oppose the weight. That's the point of the lift.
Let me just try anyway. Okay.
Yeah, go on. You go ahead.
Well, notwithstanding that, and notwithstanding their notions that aren't real of gravity and holding you to the centre of a sphere Earth in their force that's not a force that you can think of as a force with a bending 4-dimensional space-time. So once you put all of that presuppositional garbage on one side and say, okay, we know that's not true, but you have to preface it with, they will accept that it is, for me to make the point, that they just trim the aircraft. That's all they would do. In other words, you'd be nose down, according to your example, with respect to the sphere, but given their presuppositions of varying thicknesses of atmosphere that are consistent if you're maintaining level flight around the sphere Earth, then the only way you would do that is if you, A, were nose down below the horizon, but B, in terms of it not being a descent, because you would have the ground opening up, you just trim the aircraft and it would just follow that path through the even air that isn't going to work. We know it won't, but I'm just saying their argument could just be as simple to address that. They just trim it. They just trim the aircraft. And when they do trim it, they're trimming it to maintain level flight above a sphere. That's all I'd say, in my opinion.
Brian, on screen.
Just 1 second, Adam. I know what you have on screen. Just give me 1 second. This is the important part about. I just want to say this to Nathan. This is the important part about the lift effect. As soon as you have a below horizontal pitch, you're not accounting for the weight. So technically, you're gradually falling out of the sky. So the only way to have 100% of the plane's weight accounted for.
Okay, just stick to one or the other.
1 second.
Oh, I'm
just
getting
leave me finish.
confused. I'm getting confused because you're flipping between. When you say you'd be falling out of the sky, that's only true if you reference to a flat plane that you're going to crash into. Absolutely correct. But
or globe, it wouldn't matter. That's the point I'm trying to make.
okay, go on.
It doesn't matter.
Then I'm still confused. Clarify
what you're
then.
Trying to add in, hang on. What you're trying to add in for a globe is a changing horizontal, which means horizontal is just a local thing that can change over distance. It can't. Horizontal is horizontal. And as soon as you have a below horizontal pitch, which you have to have for a globe, to fly around the globe and follow the hold in altitude and fly around Earth curve, you can't have anything but a below horizontal pitch and one that accumulates. So no matter what you do, you will lose all your lift and you will fall directly out of the sky. Globe or flat, makes no difference. This is flight. Horizontal does not change. It's one orientation. You can't change from one horizontal to another.
Okay. You can't do that. It's impossible. I got you. But that's a fundamental premise that must change for a globe. So while you're saying it makes no odds either way, well, yeah, it does, because in reality, that's how it must work. But in globe nonsense that isn't comporting with reality, it must defy that principle that holds true always. In other words,
it can't.
I know it can't. I know, but that's what I'm saying. That's where we're in agreement, because that's where it debunks the globe, because they can't have that hold true in reality.
It doesn't matter in this, Brian.
Exactly.
Just to get the slides in, I'm talking about direction of down gravity, but if I use the same slides in terms of the denial of what happening in reality, as we've said, we've got the plane going across a flat plane using the angle vector, the gyroscopes in there. At no point, as it traverses that vector which is defined by the gyroscopes, is there an issue with down. Look, it's the same in everything. So the aerodynamics stay the same. Okay. Now, if we do this over a curved surface, where, as you said at the beginning, Nathan, the ground is falling away. It's not only falling away, the orientation of down, and therefore the relative stabilization of the aerodynamics is changing as the plane traverses with the same straight line vector defined by the gyroscopes in the plane. Look what happens to down. Now, if we ignore it as down and just realize that suddenly the uplift to counter the weight is now suddenly in a different direction, this is why you would have to nose down to keep yourself aligned with this new direction of down, to ensure you've got the same lift to keep yourself in the air. Does that help?
They always give you a new direction.
No.
You're accumulating it as well at a rate of 8 inches per mile.
What did you say? Sorry, you're stimulating it.
It's a good point, but it's a red herring from Brian's point. And if I can make it to let him know that I understand it.
Hold on. I'm trying to figure out what we're going to round out shortly, but you say you're stimulating a new direction. Go from there.
No, not stimulating. You're accumulating at a rate of 8 inches per mile squared a change in the direction of down if you're on a supposed ball. This is the consequence of traversing the ball, where down is no longer parallel with each other, commensurate with the straight vector. And in doing so, what Brian's saying is, I'm describing it in terms of down, but what that does is change the aerodynamics, because the second down is no longer as changed by a rate of 0.009 degrees per kilometer. Yeah, then your aerodynamics are changing at that rate. Now do that over 50 kilometers of a straight line vector. The angle you've got is suddenly different. The aerodynamics of the plane no longer work. There is no longer the lift effect.
Perfect. With that stimulation of new directions, I'm going to say, first and foremost, if you're watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow.
According to the globe fantasy, if you kept horizontal with nose up, like the dingleberry thing, the tangent that they put on there, and you keep going east, you're going to end up flying in their fantastical outer space, unless you did start going nose down to maintain 30,000 feet horizontal on their fantastical globe.
It's just 10th something. You there, 10th? There? Really not. I'll come back to him. As you were.
My daughter was funny. She said, because we was watching a classic Superman, and saw Superman going around the little Earth thing, right? So, and we was talking about it. I was explaining to her what we're talking about, and trying to make it simple as possible. And she said, "Well, if you went around the Earth the way he did, you'd have to fly with the wings pointing to the Earth." So she actually looking at it as going around, not going around top to bottom, down and up. She was talking about going around, like circular around the way it is. And she made a good point. She said that you're a passenger. Everybody on one side of the plane would see nothing but the celestial luminaries. And everybody on the other side of the plane will be seeing the Earth out of that window, flying in that way that she was conceptualizing it. And I thought that was kind of deep how she was able to see that kind of perspective of the nonsense of flying. And I told her, I said, "No, baby, that's how the plane turns." She said, "I know, because she flew before. She knows when it turns. She could tell because she feels it, and she could see that, even though it's turning, one side of the window shows the Earth, and the other side shows like a little different kind of less of the Earth and more of the sky when it does a hard right or left turn." So, but she understood to go around, not go up and go down and around, but go around like you're going around a track, a racing track, around a ball. She said, the only way, she said, wouldn't we see the sky in one window and see the Earth on the other window? And I said, that's how smart children are. And they can decipher the nonsense from what they remember when they flew. So, I don't know. I like to always add their little input for the simple minded, that they even get it.
I have a very simple diagram on screen, right? And green here, that is positive lift. Green, as in think about traffic lights. Green for a go, and the red one is for negative lift. So red for stop, right? So an airplane, when they're flying, the blue line here, that is horizontal, right? So when the airplane flies, it has to have the green line slightly above horizontal, at least slightly above horizontal, to oppose the weight of the plane. And when it's going faster, it can be closer to the horizontal, but it can never be below it, right? When it's going slower, it has to be higher, like coming in for a landing, right? But when it's below horizontal, it starts to lose lift. So as soon as it goes into the red line position, anything here, it's losing lift. So the further below this, not only is it angling towards the ground, but it's losing lift. Now, that means it has to have must be above the blue line to hold lift, to totally oppose the weight of the plane. And anything below the blue line will be losing lift, which means that even if you have 90% lift at this point, there's still 10% of the weight of the plane that's not being opposed for, right? So you will fall out of the sky, right? Now, if they hold the exact same pitch above this blue horizontal, right, and they slow down, right, or that they, if they hold the exact same and they speed up, they will rise in altitude. If they just hold that exact, they will rise. If they slow down, they will go down in altitude, but they're still referencing horizontal the same way. It might be different levels of horizontal, but those horizontal lines will all be parallel to each other. Now, this is the thing. The most important part about the lift effect is this. Not just that below horizontal will mean that you're not opposing the weight of the plane, or above horizontal that you are opposing the weight of the plane. The point is that horizontal cannot change. It is the one orientation. There can be other horizontals at different altitudes that are parallel to that horizontal, but the horizontal itself is a non-changing orientation, which means that this red line, right? I'm going to turn that into blue line a second, right? Which means that this red line can never just suddenly become the blue line because they need to fly around the globe, and then they do this. No, because the green line is now below horizontal, so you're losing lift. So what they need to claim is that this blue line here that they're above with pitch can become this line here, and then that happens. No, that's impossible. This blue line never changes. It is always the same orientation. And it's always, regardless of the altitude of the plane, it's always making a parallel with mean sea level, which is an absolute horizontal, right? Celestial navigation, everything proves, surveying proves. You can never change horizontal, but they need to make you believe that this horizontal line can suddenly become this thing. And now that's horizontal. You know what I mean? In your new reference frame, and now that's your pitch. Which is why, right, I'm going to turn this back to red, which is why I work on the lift effect, because they can change horizontal, but it is also the reason why they will not give me, and it's so difficult to get pitch official, not from a phone on a plane, because that's brilliant, but the public can ignore that. Official pitch data from actual commercial flights, because that will show that this horizontal line never changes, because it can't. How can that blue line ever become? How can this red line over here ever become that blue line, and the green line then have to go down here? That doesn't happen, because it can't. That's the whole point of the lift effect. They must keep above this blue line that never changes, and if they don't, they end up becoming the red line, and they're falling out of the sky. They're not falling straight down because they have glide, and they can glide, but they're not opposing the weight. And officially, anything below horizontal is a descent. You're going down.
It's a god-awful diagram. Can't you sex it up a bit, tie it to Adam's stimulated new direction?
Well, what Adam is talking about is correct. What Adam is saying is the vector of down, right, must change to the center of their globe. But for that to happen, then they lose lift. They can't have lift because they're not. They can't hold lift then because they're underneath. They're underneath the blue line. The blue line doesn't change.
It's just a consequence of traveling over the ball. It has to change if you're traversing a ball.
Yeah, otherwise because the outcome of it, if you're traveling over a globe, then and you're holding the exact same green line above blue line, then what's going to happen is a constant raising in altitude. So they have no choice but to follow the red line. But the red line is disaster. It doesn't work. I mean, I know that the diagram might seem basic, but I want it basic so everyone can understand. The blue line never changes.
Many new directions have been stimulated.
Well, how can this blue line that's in this orientation suddenly be that orientation? Which one of them is horizontal? Which one of these is horizontal? Which one of them? Nathan,
you keep moving it. You keep moving it. Stop.
Yeah, but because I'm trying to show you the point I'm trying to make, right? That's horizontal. Is that horizontal later? Can that be horizontal like in an hour's time, 2 hours time? Is that horizontal? Do you know what I mean? It can't be. Horizontal is clearly fine. There it is.
Damn sure will be if you're on the ball.
I think that's what you're trying to say when you're saying regardless of where I'm trying to get across that what you're demonstrating and illustrating is something that holds true always. So it's never going to change regardless of if you're on a ball and you're correct. But I'm saying that fundamental principle must change as you're demonstrating as you move up and down if you're on a ball and it doesn't. Therefore, debunking the notion of being on a ball. Correct?
Yeah, it can change. Horizontal can change.
No, of course. It's a defined.
You can't make up a new one.
It's a defined principle. And yes, it's going to remain the same regardless. And it is the same. I mean, part of what we deal with the globe burger is because of that principle having to hold true. So yeah, you're still on a globe, but you're going to be putting it at a place that has this principle holding true with a horizontal plane of reference at the center of your sphere. Well, it's kind of convoluted for a globe believer, but you still have to hold that principle true. The same is said in the Earth curve calculator, right? Where they've got your line of sight and it's horizontal. and you've got your surface level, and it's horizontal. We'll come back to that bit. But you know what I mean? These principles have to hold true, don't they?
Well, let me just show you one thing then, right? I'm going to make this blue line a bit thicker so everyone can see it a bit better, because it might be a bit small on the screen. So I'll make it right. So if this is horizontal, right, and later on this is horizontal an hour or two later, would that not be a pitch change?
Yes.
Because this has to then do that.
Yes.
And it's below this point here, which was originally horizontal.
Right, your horizontal, or to put it in a physical terminology, your gyro has to defy the principle of a gyro and recalibrate itself as you move around. It's utterly absurd. But yeah, both have to change for a globe. Both, or neither, comport with that with actual experience in reality. But both would have to change. Yes.
Well, it's either horizontal is a constant orientation, or horizontal does not exist. They are the options. Because on a globe, there is no horizontal. Do you want me to show you?
Well, they would prefer to take the first, or the former, and then just try and redefine horizontal for certain circumstances.
Well, if I draw a little circle here, and I put a few lines around it, 1 second now, and I'll do it live, circle by center, that'll do. All right, so to there, right? And I get like this. So so which one of these straight lines here, I'll zoom in so you can see it better. Which one of these straight lines is horizontal on a globe?
I mean, re-say the question again.
Which one of these is horizontal? Here, I'll add in another one here. Yeah, there's another one. Which one of these lines? Oh, that's a bit off.
If the gyro automatically realigned as you traversed a globe surface, there'd be no need, would there, to sit it on the tarmac for an hour to calibrate it?
It wouldn't be a gyro, is what you're saying. What you're saying is they wouldn't use a gyro. It would be something of another description that had a clever mechanism to track the spherical surface as you moved along it, recalibrating as it went, if you're trying to compare it to a gyro, which it wouldn't be anymore. And like you say, because gyros spin up and find where they're fixed in space for about half an hour as they get faster and faster if they're a mechanical gyro. Or with a light-based one also, from my understanding. They still take a certain amount of time, don't they?
Yeah, half an hour. It takes half an hour for them to calibrate.
You mean they wouldn't use a device literally meant to do the opposite of what it would have to do? That's
what Brian was covering earlier when he's showing the two lines and saying, would both of them have to move? Well, we're talking about the second one. Yeah, it would. It would have to recalibrate what level is, because that's what you're doing if you're using a gyro. You're calibrating it in space, and it's spinning level, excuse me, in space, in its rotational motion is going to be on a horizontal axis spinning, but that does not alter. That's the whole principle. It's like, back to Bob Nodell when he's showing that his ring laser gyro defects at 15 degrees an hour. It's like, well, get a new one. It's broken. It's not supposed to do that. The whole principle of what it's supposed to do is remain fixed in space so you can reference the plane around it. And like we've covered earlier, when you're talking about the ground, you're talking about a level surface. Anyway, back to which ones. What was the question? Which one's horizontal? Well, the top and bottom one originally, but you're going to tell me that's a trick question now or something.
Yeah, how are they horizontal when this orange line can also be a horizontal on a globe?
Well, that's what I was going to clarify, and I didn't get to it, which was, so when you say on a globe, do you mean on their heliocentric paradigm globe, where every point that, if I'm standing on the tangent point of the line you've just drawn, well, it doesn't matter to the person who's standing on that tangent point on the line you've just drawn, that you're, from our vantage point, offered a 45-degree angle, or whatever you've tried to draw there, because to them it's the top. So therefore, everything's a horizontal on a globe. But in reality, in terms of pure geometry, there aren't. What are you talking about? There are no horizontals on a globe. What you mean? You can draw a tangent to it when you're looking at it in Muppet Vision now. Well, wowee. But that won't help you.
Well, exactly.
Go on.
Sorry, I cut in on you. I didn't mean to do that.
I do it to you enough. Don't worry about it.
Have to stop. But look, The point is that none of these are horizontal on a globe. They're horizontal here. That's a horizontal. That's horizontal in reality. But on a globe, this orange line, they'll also call horizontal. So let me just add in another thing, right? Right?
I'm all right.
Is
You
that
all
a
right?
vertical now? Sorry. Give me a second. So
We know.
this one here.
You want that to be at 90 to it. Fine. We get it.
Is that a vertical now? If they're saying drop a plumb bob, how can that be vertical if this orange line can't be horizontal?
You don't
None of
phrase
them
it like you're
exist on
phrasing
a
it
globe.
wrong. You're doing a bad job as a baller. You start it with the presupposition that that is a man who is holding a plumb bob. And you say, look, idiot, this man is standing for him perpendicular to the surface, which is curving away from him at 8 inches per mile squared, and he's holding a plumb bob. But look, for us out in space on a satellite looking at him, it looks like it's dangling to the side, but for him, it's going straight to the centre. So that's how you phrase it, Brian, if you want to be a baller. You start with the premise that it is a man holding a plumb bob.
Put a man
Yeah.
under the man on Brian with a plumb bob on the top of the ball, H, because these two plumb bobs are going to be defined by the internal gyroscopes of the plane as parallel to each other. So when Brian puts them on, okay, are they parallel?
No, obviously not.
But the internal gyroscopes are going to treat those as parallel so that you don't just crash into the ground or continue up to the sky.
Yeah, you could swap them. In other words, what you're saying is somebody takes off from a plane here. Let's just do this hypothetically with old-fashioned gyros in a cage, in a box that you can physically remove. Plane takes off and lands here. Meanwhile, another plane takes off from down here at right angles. You can't see, unfortunately, guys, in G+. Audience can see. So a right angle. He then lands in the same place. So we've got two different planes that have taken off. One from the top of the ball, one from the side of the ball. And they both landed where Brian's drawn this T shape upside down. Okay? They both land there. Now, Adam has just described this plane at its start, spinning up its gyro and referencing its horizontal plane of reference. Now, I'm saying at the side of the ball, where this box is vertical, tangent to the ball, you've got another plane in their paradigm that also spins up its gyro and has it referenced to this now vertical line that I'm drawing up and down. But it's to that plane, its horizontal plane of reference. Okay, they both land here. Now, just by chance, one plane has no further destination. It's staying there. It's going into the hangar. But the other plane's got an onward journey and a faulty gyro. Now, they don't have any spares, but they've got one in the other plane that happens to be the exact same model. So they yank it out, put it in, and it just works. The functionality of the gyro remains exactly the same. It doesn't make any difference. It's still referencing the exact same plane for this point, and this point. Now, on a globe, they're all very different. In reality, they're always referencing the same plane. Sea level, if you want to call it that, it's not referenced to gyros. You just spin it up at the airport. But in terms of the overall topology and why it would remain the same is because it's all referenced to the same flat Earth. No other reason why it works and why NASA would have to tell their pilots to reference a stationary, non-rotating, flat plane. Because it is a flat plane. And the gyroscopic principle only works on a flat plane.
Exactly. Just as a closing point, not to try, I don't want to labor too much with people, but a question. I'm looking for an answer to this. Now, I know you know that, but just looking for an answer. When does this red line become the orange line? Because in reality, that's what they're saying must happen. That this red line, which is obviously a horizontal here, when does that horizontal become this orange line horizontal? Because that would be a pitch change. It cannot be. You can't go from this red line to this orange line and have the same pitch.
Yeah, you can't.
Your pitch is defined above horizontal.
We can't. We don't. It isn't. It would be on a ball, but we're not on a ball.
Well, that's the thing. On a ball, that you can't, because what will happen is, just give me a second, right? On a ball, what will happen is, I take this point, right? At this point here, right? From P out to Q here, right? I'll make Q a bit bigger so everyone can see it, right? And I'll make it blue, right? So from P here out to Q, you start to fly here. If you hold this line, you're gaining in altitude all the time on a globe. So you must somehow follow this orange line at some point. You must somehow make some kind of deviations to here. But as soon as you drop, in reality, as soon as you drop below this red line in any way, you're losing lift. So you can't turn this red line into the orange line. Because the red line doesn't exist on a globe for a start. But the whole point is, in reality, this red line does exist because horizontals do exist. But they must somehow, in their own minds, turn this red line into the orange line, which means they will have no lift and fall out of the sky. It can't, it's just, I can use this word here. Not a lot of times you can use the word, but I can use it here. It's absolutely impossible to happen on a globe. It's impossible.
They need
There's
a
no way
gyro
around it.
to defy its own principle and obey a very different principle. And they need horizontal to not exist and have a completely different definition. And they need the horizon as it represents itself to alter like your two lines altered. One would represent the gyroscopic deviation in terms of a principle that would no longer hold true. The other represents the horizon in terms of a principle that would no longer hold true. Horizontal as a definition wouldn't exist anymore. Good summary?
Exactly. There would be no such thing as perpendicular because there would be no vertical and horizontal. You'd have right angles based off of tangent planes that mean nothing. Airplanes wouldn't exist, basically. They can't, they couldn't. There'd have to be some kind of a dropping mechanism. The airplanes just wouldn't exist as they do. Now I'll share my screen.
Yeah, I took it off a second ago. Yeah, good stuff. No video response today. I only just realised we spent the whole show literally just talking about housekeeping questions. Although I'm complaining.
Well, Dave McKeegan did I just saw actually only last night, Dave McKeegan 3 weeks ago did a video on airplanes working on a globe. Now, I haven't watched it, but that might be worth a laugh. But I don't know if you want to cover Dave McKeegan.
I mean, that's that's
Maybe not
basically
today,
your
but
specialist
tomorrow.
subject, isn't it? So I mean, yeah, that's very much your thing, isn't it? So it's one where I'm no expert on planes on a flat Earth. I mean, I've got enough to get by, but you've spent a huge amount of time not just doing presentations on it, but learning the intricacies of it to the point where you're so concise that I can listen to you for 25 minutes and then concisely summarize what you've just told me because it's been so understandable. But that's my concise summary is nothing more than a testament to how well you have understood this stuff to be able to outpour it like you have. I don't know what the words would be, but you know what I mean.
Well, it's very simple. It all just comes down to the lift effect. That I've broken it down to that. It's like with the celestial navigation. I break it straight down to lift correction. I don't need to talk about any other parts of it because the lift effect, either that can work with a below horizontal pitch or it can't, and it can't. It's over. It's like with the dip correction. Either they're correcting from a globe's horizon or they're not, and they're not. That's the end of that. Do you know what I mean? Because they need two 90s that have the same shared baseline, horizontal. So, you know what I mean? It's the same thing. So it's the lift effect. That does the blue, yellow, and red line. That's all that matters. The blue line can't change its orientation. That's the whole point of an orientation. It can't change it. So that's that. You can't change horizontal. Horizontal can't be some other pitch, because pitch is defined from horizontal. Above and below horizontal pitch is how pitch is defined. So how can you change the very thing that is your baseline for your pitch? You know what I mean? Measurement. It's crazy. Like, you can't change the baseline. I don't know how to give a good analogy of it. I don't know how to. It'd be like changing the length of an inch when you're measuring something halfway through measurement. Go on, Chocolate. Sorry.
That would be a hell of a thing. Trying to have your hot coffee on the back of an airplane tray on the tray table as the pitch of the plane is consistently changing. That would be a hell of a thing.
Well, one of the things I did point out before was that if they're going to do any pitch below horizontal in an airplane, everyone must have been in their seats, including the stewardesses, in their seats with the belts on. They prepare people for it. So sometimes they will come into land, but they'll drop in altitude by pitching below horizontal. And you must be in your seats with the belts on. I've 3 times experienced that. I've had a good few flights now. I've been lucky. I've flown around the world a good bit. But 3 times I've experienced that. Sometimes it's bad weather. You need to drop below bad weather or something briefly. They will pitch below, but everyone must be in their seats with the seatbelts on. No way out of it. Do you know what I mean? Because of what they're doing. It's just, it doesn't work. Do you know what I mean? Either you agree that horizontal exists or you don't. It's simple as that. You have to say horizontal doesn't exist if you want to say the globe is real. Horizontal can't exist because you can't change you can't change from horizontal to a different horizontal because that's a pitch change that's based off of horizontal. It just can't be done. And lift requires a slightly above horizontal pitch to oppose the weight. It's that simple. Anyway, I'm not going to keep going on about it.
Okay then. Don't.
Well, I will if you want, because I'll talk about that. Because I'm mad to get people to see this, how simple it is, how it can't be beaten. You can't. I have only one commercial pilot left who's talking to me, just one out of 5. There was 5 pilots. Sorry, 4 more. 4 of them were commercial, and one of them was private. Out of all of them, there's only one left, and he will not give me a yes or no on the lift effect. He'll give me 2 or 3 paragraphs of absolute nonsense, but he won't say yes or no. When I say to him, so are you telling me you can oppose 100% of the weight of the plane with a below horizontal pitch? And he'll come back to me with all kinds of garble, and he will not give me a simple yes or no because he knows that he's held to it. And I've told him, I said, because I will refer to my friends. My friends, a good friend of my friend is a captain in a very big airline. So I'll refer what this guy says back to him. And because this guy is the guy I'm dealing with online, Trevor Austin, he is a real commercial pilot from what I can tell. So that means he's online telling people a load of rubbish if he says, yes, you can hold 100% positive lift with a below horizontal pitch. He won't say yes to that because he knows that it's wrong. And he knows I can present that to a real pilot and they go, what? Another pilot, and they go, what's this guy talking about? So he has no choice but to just give me garble. Three paragraphs of garble that mean absolutely nothing. Why? Because you can't get past it. There's no past it. There's no going past it. You know, like with celestial navigation, the borders just can't get past it. There's no way to get past it. Or the geometric horizon, you can't get past it. It's not geometric. End of. That's it.
I'm just listening.
That's good to know.
I want to make a suggestion for us just here in G+, because I had a false perception of what Brian looked like until I saw him debate Witsit. I thought Brian was this old dude, you know, like my age or older, and you know, like Nathan said, he's a handsome guy, thick beard. What the guy said, a 2 a.m. shadow. Somebody said you had a 2 a.m. shadow, not a 5 o'clock shadow. That was hilarious. But it'd be cool if we can all have our I'm just thinking like this. Like Ted has this vision of us being maybe in the mainstream one day because of the blessings that are being bestowed upon us for fighting for truth and just getting over that obstacle of these liars and these mainstream false narrative, dumb pushers, dumb dope pushers. One day we might have a show where it'll be like that Howard Stern show, Breakfast Club, or all of those shows that you see on these podcasts where you get to see the visuals. It'd be cool if we can have our faces like Eli has his, I've had mine sometimes, Neil has his, even though he sometimes puts a little avatar caricature one, but still. So I can put a face with you guys. Because I heard Huey looks like Hulk Hogan. I never imagined that. I thought his voice made me think that he looks like what's the guy that played? Oh man, I forgot. He used to play an Entourage with on HBO.
Hulk Hogan.
Yes, somebody told me that. Somebody said that according to Nathan, who was it? Divergent told me that, or was it Arn? Said that according to
Oh, you did.
to Nathan. Yeah, according to Nathan, he said QE kind of resembles a Hulk Hogan. So I'm thinking, and then I saw somebody put a picture of Hulk Hogan, in the ring, pulling his shirt open. I'm like, that don't match the voice. But anyway, I would just say just to diverge, somewhere else. I'm just divert somewhere else in the topic. It'd be cool if we have our pictures up on there so we could put the faces with the with the voices and everything. Because
a lot of his videos.
Huh? Say what?
Huey has
not the ones
has a
I've
lot
seen.
of pictures up.
I got to go way back in his catalog because the ones I'm seeing, I don't see nothing.
No,
All I
you
see-
don't. The one where he's shooting turkeys or the Black Swan. That's him.
Oh, okay, all right, okay. I didn't know that was. I thought that was just him using a
Hulk
thumbnail
Hogan?
joke. Okay. But back to what we was talking about. Like, I guess I don't know if it was Chocolate or it was Eli. You understood where I was coming from. I don't. I know where we stand. I know how we stand and how we are. We're what you would consider the grad school of flat Earth.
You
But
don't
we
run
gotta-
out of
we
gas,
Huh?
You don't run out of gas, do you?
Well, it was such a. I'm trying to fill in the dead space because Nathan's about to say, "Okay, for
No.
that I'm gonna."
You don't run out of gas, baby. You go full throttle the whole way. I sit back
But look
and
how-
laugh.
But look how long I was quiet. I was quiet for that whole thing. I said, because I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to absorb everything. But man, you made me miss my train of thought, man. Neil, you famous for that, man. Dang.
Yeah, Neil.
Oh, like Eli, like Eli. I was saying, we're the grad school. Okay, we're I wouldn't say PhD because that's philosophy. But I'm saying that we're the top level of that knowledge, that can stand up against the Faulkners, the Michikuku, the Tysons. You know what I'm saying? But then we got to take into consideration the small guys. They're still in preschool, they're in kindergarten, and they're in elementary school, and they're learning. And unfortunately, they can't get their hands on, or maybe they're not qualified yet, or they're intimidated. I don't know what it is to go to the university, Oxford University, to start indulging into this. So they have what they have down there, but they got their little butter knives and their little pocket knives, and they're still stabbing ankles and Achilles tendons. Give them credit.
Throw them in 10th grade public school. They'll be all right.
Yeah. They're trying. They're trying. It's feast of nonsense. They're not getting all their full vitamins, but at least they're eating. They're fighting what they can.
I have something else to present if you're interested.
Yes.
I'll go with yes. Okay. This is the dip correction. This is the only thing that's important concerning the dip correction. Now, this here, right? That's the height of the observer's eye, and this S, this is U, right? So I'll go in close, you can see. That's the observer's eye line, and S is mean sea level, right? So the dip correction can be done in two ways. It can be described as the vertex here of, right, which is at the eye line, being brought down to sea level, right? As you can see, 90 degrees here, and that stretches out to The GP of the celestial body, which would be here, let's just say, is another 90 degrees, right? But this is the horizon, let's just say, but the whole point is that from the observer's point of view, the star looks like it's directly above the horizon. Or, right, you can do it the other way, where this here, right, the line that's down at the horizon comes up to the eye line. But what you will notice is this. I'm just going to show, right? The correction is the same. There's no difference in correction, right? The amount that's being corrected for. So if I bring this back down, right? So if I go down with the vertex, it's that amount of correction, right? The height of the observer's eye. If I go up with the line, it's the same amount of correction. But on a globe, I'm just going to move this to mind this line here a second. On a globe, they must be correcting for down here. Now, I know this is not the scale, right? It's much bigger scale. But they must be correcting from down here up to the eye line. So is this line here, this little small line here, I'm just going to get rid of that and I put in a smaller line. Second. So that is the height of eye correction right there. But the globe must make this the height of the eye correction. So give me that, I color that green, and I give this, I color red. So the question is, which one of these is the correction? The green line or the red line? Because they must be, for them, for what they claim concerning celestial navigation, besides even how they even could do that, because they need to know the distance to the horizon, which is impossible to know. They need, right, this red line to be the correction. But in the almanac, it's only correcting for this green line. So how can they be correcting, right, from here up to the eye line when the correction is only from here to the eye line? That's the whole point of the dip correction. Their correction that they need has to be greater than the actual dip correction in reality. Because it doesn't matter, because they're right now, this might be me making their big curve here might be a bit too extenuating it too much. But it doesn't matter. They're always going to be correcting for more. Even if it's just down to here, they always have to be correcting for more than what the dip is. They can't not be. So it doesn't matter whether the vertex, so it makes no difference of whether someone describes it. They don't want this, they hate this description. And this is the one that they always show in the navigation diagrams of the eye line going down to the water line. Because all, the salt reduction tables always work off of the eye line being at the water line. So they hate when you describe it that way, right? So what they try and say, no, the line just comes up from the horizon, because they're begging the question that they have an horizon that's below this horizontal line. And they're trying to say the correction is coming up to here, but it's not. The correction is only from here up to there. So it doesn't matter if you bring the vertex down or bring the line up, makes no difference. It's the same amount of correction. But the main point here is not just that. It's that this blue line here, right? This blue line here, I'll bring it to 9 as well, right? The water here at the horizon, right underneath the W, that this water here, right, must be in a horizontal line with the water underneath the boat, because that's the same amount of correction. So it means it doesn't matter if you have 15, 20 miles between the observer and the horizon. It makes no difference, because the water has to be in a horizontal with the water underneath the boat. And that horizontal extends out to wherever the GP of the star would be.
Hey, Brian,
so it's impossible on a globe.
That looks like, what that looks like, Brian? If you would take from the right of the graphic of the angle and you took that and you flattened that out on the right and then leave it as it is, that looks like someone standing on the shore looking out at sea. And you know how they say don't go too far out into off the shore when you're at the beach, because it dips down. And then if you expand this picture, that's what I'm saying. If you expanded this picture, instead of making it look like that's the scale of the fantastical globe, and you took the right side and you know, made it go out straight out like a shoreline, and the earth is continuing on that way, that looks like a human being standing on the shore looking out at sea. And what's this graph? B1, is it B1? Yeah, B1 would be the horizon, would be the sea going out at sea. And the what is this down here? No, this is a A1. A1 would be just the shore going down, and then you have the sea, and then further out to the left, then it would go back up to another continent. So that would be that topography we're talking about of how the earth, you know, has its deep sea. Of course, you know, the sea is because the water's going down. You know, you understand what I'm saying? If you blew this up in a larger scale, that's the only way that this looks like. If I showed this to my children, they would ask me, well, Daddy, what's that? Is that somebody standing on the beach and they're looking out and the boats are out there on that line there? That's how they would see this with this curve coming down. That's how
Well,
they
yeah,
would
you
look.
can just describe it that way. You could describe it
Yeah,
to your children. You could describe it. You don't have to talk about someone being on a boat. You could just talk
right,
about the angle between the observer standing here, let's say at the shore, the feet just at the water at the beach, and
exactly.
that this is the angle they have down to the horizon. But the
hmm
horizon is in an exact line with the water that they're standing in. No
Exactly.
difference. Yeah, it's the same because that's all you're describing. It's just that angle between two parallel horizontals. That's all it is. Do you know what I mean? So it's just a simple diagram. But the whole point of this, for our argument, is that this is why I only work off the dip correction. Is that the dip correction can never be more than this green line here. I'm just going to make that purple. This purple
Exactly.
line that I'm going to make as big as possible. It can never be more than that. That is the amount that the dip correction can be, because that's the height of the eye above the water. So if it
Right.
can never be more than that, how can it be this?
Exactly.
Do you know what I
So
mean?
you
It can't. Yeah.
Brian, just put the diagram back for me. So W's
Yeah,
where it was.
up to the eye line, Adam.
Yeah. Now, will you just draw me a line from
Okay.
S to W?
Will do. Yeah. Yeah. Do you want me to make it a color for you?
Well, yeah, pretty colour's always nice.
Okay, 1 second. Something that defines it. Orange, okay with you?
Grand.
Yeah. Do you want to make it thicker?
No,
Maybe a little bit.
that's fine for now.
Okay.
I want to just step out of geometry a little bit and just realise that this is optics that we're using here. So now, if we're on the rubber ducky life preserver at point S, our eye is at the centre, and it's on the surface. So it's already smack bang in. So that line would be true in a rubber ducky life preserver. If we go up, and I'm going to use the orange line now as the surface in the field of view. So I'm now at point V, at U, above S, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
What I'm seeing in my field of view, in my sextant finder to attain a level, this is what I'm going to use the horizon for, is this, isn't it? The surface rises to the eye level, to the point of the horizon. Now, what happens is, if you can now just, that's it, if you can just lower W a tiny little bit by, say, 3 arc seconds, okay, not P as well, but that actually, no, leave it, that's fine, because that's how it's going to render. That's the dip in terms of what we're doing, because remember, we're trying to ascertain a level, which is parallel. So that, because that's what's happening in the optics, because in the optics, the line, that blue line, when we look at it in the distance, comes up to eye level. And this is where the globe becomes even more laughable. Look at the rays you've got in this diagram here compared to what we're doing optically. Yeah. Because all we've got is an infinite plane, a point of dissolution, which is why the deck is rising to eye level, because it just goes off past the point of being able to see, but it just continues. So it's that point of merger we're creating, not to form geometry at this point, but to ascertain a level. That level will then be raised back up to where we had it, where W is. And as you'll see then, it's parallel to the rubber ducky surface that if we look at, and that's what we're creating there to then work from for the sextant.
Yeah, right there. Because
Yeah,
B wouldn't be, because P would be the sky and B would be the surface coming together at W from our perspective.
Just
Correct?
optically, yeah. Just at a point. That's what the horizon is. Remember, the horizon isn't the leading edge of a ball. They want to make it that. We haven't
Yes.
got that. We've got an infinite plane, so it's just a point of dissolution where the sky appears to meet the surface. Yeah, well, that's all we've got. And like I say, think about it when you look through that flat infinite plane that's in front of you, that's below you at point S because you're at U, raises up to your eyes. This is the force of the, I would say, the force of the Bohr model, because what they're trying to do is invoke that, in geometry. Well, in actual fact, we're trying to use that horizon to create a definitive level, which will be parallel to the surface. If we just use optics, we've got something that's inclining up to eye level from below our feet.
Yeah, like that. This is why the ballers are always attempting to, like, if I say to them, as was shown in a lot of the diagrams and they explain it this way, that the vertex is at sea level. So that means sea level is your horizontal, and they hate that. So what they always try and do is equivocate and try and say, no, it's the dip down to the horizon that's coming up your eye line, because that allows them to beg the question. But dip correction destroys that, because the correction is only for the height of the eye. So it can't be any greater than this. So if their horizon is this, let's say out here where this black line is, then their correction must be from that up to there. But if I do the dip correction here, then that would be their correction, because it's only height of eye. So if I only add in the actual height of eye to their correction, then it will be that. You know what I mean? It won't be this. Yeah, this is the thing. It'll only be from here up to there, right? It won't be from here up to here, because there isn't a correction for that. That correction doesn't exist. There's only a correction for this purple line between U and S. But this is the thing, right, about their claims. Let's just say the horizon is this far away on their globe, then the correction is from here up to the green line. But if it's this far away, then the correction is here up to the green line. If it's this far away, then the correction, if it's this far away, that has to be going down, then it's from here up to the green line. The point is that they need to know the exact distance to even do this nonsense correction that doesn't exist in reality. It doesn't exist in celestial navigation. To even perform that on the globe, they need to know how far away their refracted horizon is. Do you know what I mean? And that means they need to know that at that point. So if someone's here on a boat, they need to know, right, what their angle is down to, I'll get another line just to put it in there. They need to know what their angle is down to that point, right? Or to this point, or this point, or that point, or that point. Do you know what I mean? They need to know the actual distance to the horizon at that time.
Yeah, you made your point.
That's still irrelevant, though.
He made his point, though. And when it would kind of negate the height of eye they get at dock, right?
Yeah, completely, because it's a correction that doesn't exist. Like,
yeah, Brian. You did a good job with that. Yeah, and listen, ballers, you know that they get the height of eye correction in harbor at port. You guys know that? Why they do that? How they do that?
Are the ballers claiming that the refracted horizon is below where the surface level meets the sky?
Yeah, that's a problem for them. That's why we asked Rufy how that geometric horizon's working out for him.
If you're at sea, sorry.
Well, first of all, refracted horizon, I don't even know why we're speaking to anything after that. You just stop right there, you belly laugh, and then leave.
Well,
right, but the blue line... The
Go on,
blue
John,
line
I'll
would be
follow.
where the surface level meets the sky at some point along that, right? So if they're drawing a dot somewhere between that blue line and the arc of what they think is a sphere, and yeah, just anywhere in there, that's still below surface level.
Yes.
Exactly. Which is the point, means that dip correction can't work because they have to go below surface level to do dip correction. But they also need to know the distance to their refracted horizon. Now, that would mean that the almanac would have to be a book that you open up, right? And it tells you at that point how far away your refracted horizon is.
That is lunacy. You keep on saying, you keep on saying refracted horizon. You need to take that out of your. They need to come up with something different because I'm stopping them every single time.
No, that's their claim,
No.
right? But that's their claim. I'm not going to tidy up their dirty claim. They've gone from it being just geometric to it now being refracted. That's part of their conundrum, isn't it? It's not for me to tidy it up.
No,
Yeah, you guys just don't understand. That's just life on a ball, man. It's just how it goes.
But even if you give them all of that, the horizon is where surface level meets the sky. Like, it doesn't make sense, even if you give them that.
No. You don't go past giving them that.
Oh, I want them to claim it.
You're pulling an Anthony. We'll be here for weeks.
No, I'm not. Surface level meets the sky. It's over.
Well, yeah, it's over right there, right? Why does
not the definition of horizon, is it?
What?
It's not where the surface meets the sky, it's where it appears. That's what I was alluding
Correct.
to. This is a thing due to a lens and a plane and unlimited view across the plane. That's what the horizon is, that point of dissolution where the sky appears to meet the surface.
The sea level.
Are you
Sea
saying
level.
that the horizon is the visible,
of the horizon.
non-visible place where the sky appears to meet the ground? Are we sure we're talking about the visible, non-visible one?
Exactly where it appears visibly to meet the sky, not to claim that that's an actual point. It's an apparent position, isn't it?
Yeah. What's your point?
In the definition, whereas here, whether it's a refracted or non-refracted geometric position.
What'd you say, sir?
I said either, but fundamentally, that has a geometric base to it. There is a physical causation. There is a point of blockage, not a point of dissolution. That's the cause of this horizon in their world. And this diagram shows how ridiculous it is. Now, remember that blockage is the thing that you're going to use to define a level, which is where Brian's objection comes in. Well, I'm going to need to know how much refracted and how much and far away that refracted thing is. So that I can define how much I'm actually dipping away from a level to adjust back to a level.
Now you said refracted thing. What is that thing?
That refracted geometric leading edge of a sphere.
So not level. Not sea level meeting the sky. Then.
No, it doesn't exist. No, not. It doesn't exist. You guys are getting Jedi mind tricked with this refracted stuff. Do I got to do another presentation on refraction?
No. Listen to me a second. Adam sees what I'm talking about. For them to do dip correction, they need an almanac that consistently changes on its own magically that tells them when they're at sea how far away their refracted horizon is at that very moment.
That's a married bachelor.
Yeah, but the point is, this is how ridiculous it is for them, because they need to know the distance to their horizon to determine how much over 6R is involved, so then they can determine what corrections they need to do to bring it up to eye line. Do you understand?
You already showed that. Everyone got that. Everyone understands what you're saying, but I'm saying you're going one more step beyond ludicrousness.
Yeah, I'm going into absolute crazy world to show how crazy Our world is. I admit it.
Yeah, and then you say, well, why do they get their height of eye? Why do they do it this way? How do you reconcile them getting they're obtaining their dip angle from dock or port?
Well,
Right?
that can't work on a globe. That's the point. So you can't claim that from the globe. You must say that doesn't happen.
The dip
So
angle
there's
is attained at port for one reason. That's to ask when you load the ship, you don't know how
Yeah.
high above the water it's going to be. Now,
Yes, sir.
You're adjusting for the height above a flat deck. That's all you want to know, how high your eye is based on today's load.
Yes, sir. But
yeah, because I'm not getting the.
I'm sorry, not taking anything away from Brian. I like the diagram here. I like the visuals, and it's clear. But like I said, you're going 2 and 3 steps beyond ludicrousness. But that's okay.
I've been
That's your happy place. I get it.
Ludicrous speed, man.
But so for them to claim anything in the almanac, they need the sky to meet surface level at 2 points that aren't surface level, below surface level, to make any claim.
It's worse than that. They need the almanac to be a magic book that changes on its own, moment to moment. So you need a consistently changing ink, right, that is self-aware, that changes to tell them exactly how far away their horizon is.
So they don't need a book. They just need like the Sword of Omens to give them sight beyond sight.
Well, they need
thunder.
Nathan!
Come on, Nathan.
Well,
Thunder.
We're lost, man. What are we
do? I don't see anything helping them.
We need a self-aware almanac.
Or, as long as you know the height of the photograph was taken.
Brother.
Maybe he's listening to you, QE. Just tell him again that it's taken in port so they can ignore you for another 10 minutes.
We know it's taken in port.
So, last week,
Say it
I had
again.
to eat a little bit of humble pie because
Why?
Brian Leake caught me out in a contradiction. Which I just said, yeah, you're right. I contradicted myself there. Anyway, meanwhile, he's caught you out in a contradiction, QE.
What was it? I'm sorry, I didn't see it. Go ahead.
Well, pending any explanations with context that it's a phrasing of someone else's argument or something similar, he's got you saying that the what's Einstein's photographic effect called?
The photoelectric effect?
Photoelectric effect. He's got you claiming it's an experiment.
Oh, God. Is that it?
Yeah.
That's it, yeah.
Okay, it's not an experiment. It's a demonstration, and it's right as rain. We good?
You called it an experiment. You were explicit. You were claiming it like it was proof. You scammer, you scum.
I listened.
QE in the past.
Hold on. If we're going to get on people for doing it, then it's only going to come back when we do it. Own up and move on.
No,
All right, Hogan?
It's coming at the end. We're going to praise Brian. He's got a keen eye and ear. And considering...
He's a retard.
No need.
He's a retard.
No need.
Brian Leakey is a retard. Yeah, he is.
Brian, defend him. Defend him.
Yes, it's
Brian.
been demonstrated over and over and over again.
Okay, well, I like him. Get lost.
Okay.
Oh, wait a second. This is Brian Leakey you're talking about? No.
Yeah.
QE showed he demonstrated how dumb he is.
Yeah.
Well, irrespective of his
Easily
thunder,
distracted.
he demonstrated a misspeak. So take it on the chin. The photoelectric effect at some point, even though John refers to it as the photoelectric effect, is at some point, I don't know whether there's multiple times he said it or just one time being played, but at one time in the past, at least, he's said it's an experiment. I happily own up to that. I don't.
Yeah, damn.
Get on the ground and 50 push-ups, QE.
Exactly. Because
I'm
you
sure
hard
there's-
nosed as you are with us.
I'm sure there's plenty of times where I called just the plain double slit experiment a double slit experiment. I'm sure there's that there. I don't know, probably hundreds of
Sorry,
times.
you mean when referring? Let's get this some clarity, some hyperspecificity, as you would say. When you're talking about the demonstration of diffraction when firing light through a double slit, which you could equally achieve with a single slit, right? But when that's being shown and they're scratching their heads, you might have incorrectly described that demonstration of diffraction as the double slit, quote unquote, experiment incorrectly. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because it's just one of those things like atmosphere, right? You hear it so many times, you freaking just say it just to say it, right? You're not thinking about it, but like Young's, what do they call Young's double slit experiment, right? Well, that's not an experiment.
Okay, but just out of interest, how many times has somebody, I don't know, called you up and said, "Excuse me, just so you know, as a nice friendly aside, you're abusing this word"? I mean, is this the first time someone's happened to have pointed this out, like Brian has? Thank you, Brian, by the way, if you're listening.
I did.
Yes, that's
that
neuro-linguistic programming.
Rewind.
Rewind. Hold on. Are you all called QE? What's going on?
Holy shit.
No, I did. I said, hey, even though fundamentally Jern is wrong, maybe we could clear some things up. Like, when it first happened, and he was like,
"Stop!
No, I didn't make a fucking mistake."
Stop! You don't understand what I'm doing. I'm about to juxtapose it with that. That's not what I'm talking about. You've obviously spotted where the juxtaposition's going to come and ruin my ending. But thank you for that, Eli. First, we must contrast.
Let's beat on QE's mistake first.
No, on the contrary.
I'll
just reveal my hand before it all goes to shit. No, I'm going to reveal the fact that, by comparison, right, while we collectively, me specifically, have taken certain individuals to one side and attempted on multiple occasions to educate and address their abuse of these words. In this instance, I'm going to guess that there might be maybe one time that someone said, "Hey, actually, is that not an experiment?" And Q's gone, "Holy shit, yeah, actually, no, it isn't. Better start self-correcting that." Now, that contrast that I was hoping to lead QE to give me, I'm just going to take it as read, even though he didn't say the damn words. Very, very rude of me. Nevertheless, take that as read, that QE would go, "Yeah, I accept the correction, and I won't be calling that an experiment anymore because it isn't." As opposed to, "What's that you say? Me calling it an experiment's wrong? You are a scammer," which is what QE would have to do to contrast it and parallel it, sorry. Anyway, you've already robbed my punchline, so thank you for that, Eli.
Well, hold on. Is light causing the free electron release in the photographic plate?
Don't worry about that yet, John. Hold on a second.
That was something else, but I didn't highlight that for QE. So he also moaned about you saying about the photons not having a journey, but he didn't quite grasp the context that you were detailing it in terms of, well, we're still detailing the effect that we observe of the photons, and his comparison in that respect is kind of fair, but still not, and I'll explain why. He's saying, well, that's all Witzit's doing. He's using that, and he hesitated to say photon. Well, I appreciate the base premise of photons themselves is attempting to be debunked by the person who's also using them. That's Witzit. That's our point. You're not. So there's a big distinction there.
QE's wrong. Okay. The photoelectric effect is not an experiment.
No,
John
we've got that.
John might want to try and save him by citing some experiment or.
No, this is a different issue.
In there, but
you're missing the. It's a different issue. There's two things.
Well,
Number one, not an experiment. He's already conceded that. Number two, he's talking about journeys of photons, and where QE is saying there isn't
talking about that.
Well, I am. I'm just.
Let me make the point. Just
okay.
Implicitly by the description of the photoelectric effect, if anybody says experiment, you're already wrong. What you've cited, if you say the photoelectric experiment, then there's a point of rebuttal here. But if you've already cited it as the effect and you might misspeak, you should recognize it as misspeak. And if anybody holds you up to it, you can just say, "Yep, that's a misspeak," because I did describe it as the photoelectric effect.
He did.
It's a syntax error. It's just a mild misspeak. I don't get the purpose, because by
Own it.
any intellectual conversation, if somebody's cited it as an effect, you should realize that. Now, there might
Thank
be
you.
some science.
Yes,
to
Adam.
back
I
up
agree.
why
I agree.
you
It's
think
just
it's an effect.
you're missing my point that I'm trying to get as an overarching point, which is to say, to criticize QE in this respect from Brian for a minor misspeak when he says words to the effect, and I'm paraphrasing, that the photoelectric effect is an experiment that demonstrates the following. Then someone would come along and say, that's not an experiment. And he goes, yeah, you're right, misspeak. It's actually a demonstration of the free release of photons, or whatever he's using it to demonstrate as a demonstration. And he's even prefaced it by saying, and he did, photoelectric effect. Well, QE is obviously not so ignorant of science to not appreciate that you need a cause for that to call it science. He's the one who told us all, but he's just had a misspeak.
Yeah.
My point is that you're having to. Thank you, Eli. You're having to really reach to get to that point where you're saying, look, you've done something that's not right. Okay, so why is Brian doing this? Well, he's doing it because we've pointed out that, number one, we've got Jaron claiming we are scammers because we use the words of science. Well, because we've called out his guru, he's now going to find misspeaks when he reaches. Okay, well, you can do that, Brian, and I thank you. Yeah, we do misspeak also. But like we're doing now with Brian, thank you, Brian, for pointing that out. Yes, we'll endeavour to never say the word experiment when talking the photoelectric effect ever again, because obviously it offends you, and we wouldn't want to do that. But what we aren't doing is claiming that you can change angular size, call it an experiment, say it's science, and then ask for money for an app. That's fraud.
There you go.
That's fraud.
There you go. There you go. You hit it. So there's a difference between just common language, right? That everyone, it's been titled that, Young's double slit experiment and so many experiments, and this is an experiment, that's experiment. It changes when you say, okay, now I have scientific evidence for proof, and then call a non-experiment an experiment. Those are two different things.
Yeah. It's further to that.
Absolutely. And because I was having the conversation with the other side when y'all were talking to yourselves, right? So, I told Wissett specifically, okay, fair point, but it's a little bit of a reach. It's a difference between misspeaking and throwing out the scientific method entirely. Because I know you're not insinuating that QE or any of us don't understand what the method actually entails. But it is a bit of a reach because they're not really trying to focus on that, because they're trying to throw the entire method away. Maybe not all, but some people think that science doesn't prove things. And they're going to try to use this reach as a way to, hoodwink people into thinking that science doesn't prove things. Just don't get it twisted.
Refracted. When you're doing the photoelectric effect, sometimes how did they get to realizing that there's a level of energy required? There's a level of empiricism that you had to get to describe this effect, that you need a certain amount of energy to kick an electron off.
It came from Max Planck.
The point is there is experiment there. And that doesn't mean the photoelectric effect is a description of things, but there's plenty of experiments that got to you to be able to define the photoelectric effect.
For instance, are you saying John refracted curvature or me, QE?
John refracted.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Right. Are we denying that the freeing of electrons from valency is a phenomenon that happens in nature, or what?
No, what's happening is we're qualifying that while this is a phenomena, there are other experiments attached to said phenomena that we wouldn't want to deny, that you could call experiments, as opposed to just denying outright that there is a phenomena to describe. Make sense?
Okay, so are we denying that we manipulate the light to free those electrons?
Yeah, but that's not the cause. See, what's the question? The question in the photoelectric effect, or is it a what is existence question? Are they photons? Are they quanta? Or are they waves? So that's a what is question. existence.
Right, but if you're talking about the free release of the electrons, the light is causing that.
Yeah, that's true, but that's not what we're looking for. Follow? You're
No,
still
he
asking
obviously
what
doesn't. So can you lead him a little bit?
No, you're still asking. It just comes down to the question that you're asking. That's why I always say that. Well, what's the question that you're asking? And the question that they were asking was, go ahead.
Well, the question you would be asking, I would think, would be how the electrons are being freed from valency. It'd be a how question.
How?
I would think. I mean,
no, it's a well, I don't know.
Can we clear up that this ask a question is ask a question to find out what category you're in, as opposed to ask a question is your naturally observable phenomena? Because that's two different things.
And by the way,
on the Morgile here.
By the way, it wasn't
My
Einstein
question
either. Holy shit!
Hey, John, we've got even more confusion.
I'll let this one
Hold
go.
on, everyone, stop.
Morgile's here. I'll
Stop,
let
stop,
this go.
stop.
I'm sorry.
Stop. Got 3 Johns. So, for clarity, refracted John is going to be refracted. QE's going to be QE, and John the Morgile is going to be Morgile. So we've got Morgile, refracted, and QE. I don't want to hear John. Okay?
Is Morgile in here?
Yeah, he just said hello, but you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Damn. All right. What's up, John?
Sorry.
Don't do
Hey
that.
guys. My only
up,
question is are we even sure there is such a thing as electrons, right?
Yeah, we're sure.
We're sure.
Yes and no.
Yeah, we're pretty darn sure.
How they're described, right, in the models and the maths, is not as they behave. It's just a way of describing them, which gets reified. So you're talking about their behavior in terms of them orbiting and stuff like that. Is that what you're talking about, Morgile?
Well, what I'm talking about is actuality. So yeah, I agree that the description and the mathematical behavior of these things is reified in math, and I can get on board with that. But my thing is I don't necessarily believe in atoms, molecules, and protons and electrons inherently.
Oh God!
So
For brevity, let's just say yes. They're talking about it looking similar to the solar system with revolving balls and stuff. Yes.
Nice. Very good. And hey guys, I just wanted to make sure that I know I caught you at the end. I wanted to make sure that my phone was going to work. So I'm sorry for interrupting, but fascinating discussion. And I'm not 100% sure the debate that you guys are having about the photoelectric effect, but I do agree with y'all that the term experiment does roll off the tongue sometimes. Neuro-linguistic programming, so I think sometimes we just sort of misspeak, and we're not necessarily trying to steal the valor of science by saying things like the double slit experiment.
It's got a colloquial definition as well, remember? So it all depends on the context. 99 times out of 100 here, it will be immediately pegged to natural science because that's the context of the debate. So therefore, yeah, there's a good chance here that if you're using that word, it's going to be contextualized around a natural phenomena because we're debating the natural world when we talk about flat Earth. That is what we are debating. Therefore, it's almost automatically contextualized. However, if you say, well, yesterday I spent the entire time experimenting with drugs, or yesterday I spent the entire time experimenting on my BMX at the track, those are perfectly satisfactory uses of the word. You are just experimenting colloquially. That's fine. It's only when you wrap it around the subject of the natural world.
Yes, John. No. Okay, the Morgile.
You have to be a bit more.
Are.
Hold on, just one sec. You have to be a bit more vigilant with your mic, though, Morgile. I pop it on, push to talk, or mute yourself when you're not talking because you've got a lot of background noise.
Mute.
Thank you, Neil.
Morgile, you do understand that there are double slit experiments. It's not that they don't exist. It's like he said, or Nathan said, it's got to be in context. You got to be hyper specific. Now, Young's double slit experiment, that's called the double slit experiment, the original one in 1801. That's not an experiment, but they call it the double slit experiment. But there are thousands of double slit experiments, actual ones. You follow that?
Yeah, absolutely. Understood and agreed for sure.
I don't think that's what he's questioning. He's questioning the validity of the existence of, what was it, electrons, in terms of what we might describe as an effect that we experience versus what I've described as little balls in orbits and stuff. Well, the little balls, even themselves, I think Morgile's questioning the validity of their existence, full stop, I think, from what he said. Could be wrong.
That's what he said before, but then he went on the double slit experiments. I'm not doing the Pete and Pete thing.
Well, can I just add some clarity here? Just some clarity. Because the real problem here, the real reason that this argument is coming up is because of the ether argument that's been made from a long time ago, but through Bob and then Whitsitt, right? But I talked in the debate with Whitsitt. I charged Whitsitt with the attempting to hijack the photon and the unknown elements of light, and then make it his own and put his own spin on it. Now, at first, he disagreed with that, and he said, I'm not. But later on, towards the very end of the debate, he admitted that what he's doing is he doesn't agree with the current way of describing it, and he's trying to redescribe it or redefine the whole lot via ether. So that's the thing. It's like that's what's going on.
Hold on. There's a conflict of interest for Morgile here, right? So can we just lay down some ground rules that, number one, Morgile's not going to be anybody's errand boy. I've already apologised on one of the shows for attempting to make Whitsitt my errand boy with with Dave and Jaron. Well, obviously with the conflict, it's unreasonable to A, ask Morgile to speak for Whitsitt or ether belief that isn't his specifically, or B, get him to be some sort of messenger boy and pass messages or ask things. That's unreasonable. So let's just avoid doing that.
Yeah, honestly, I don't really know Whitsitt very well personally. The only interactions I've ever had with Whitsitt are on the Globebuster shows, which is not very much interaction at all.
But even then, you're involved with a show with him, so that's still the same conflict, even if it's diluted slightly by your last statement. It's still the same conflict. So by the same token, I just want to make that explicitly clear to the people on the panel. Let's just avoid putting awkward positions upon Morgile. Okay, that's all I'm saying.
I'm not. I didn't do that.
I'm not suggesting you did.
I'm
not suggesting you did. I'm just saying it off the cuff from this point forth.
Yeah, okay. I'm not throwing that towards Morgile or putting anything on him to do anything, just so he knows this, right? Right. No, my point being is that what Whitsitt is doing, and he admitted it on the show. Now, he denied it at first, but he admitted towards the end, is he's looking to redefine the whole electric, magnetic, and light model that we use. He's looking to redefine the whole lot, and he reckons he can explain it better via the ether. And that's what he's trying to do. Yeah.
He doesn't know what those terms mean, number one. Number two, there are no explanations. I think the Jedi mind tricked his dumbass into thinking that he can explain stuff. Like when you asked him to support his baseless assertion by showing, not explaining, not just so stories. He's delusional. Follow?
Going what?
Did you guys have the recent debate? You talking about like Friday or Thursday?
Hold on, Eli. What was he asked to
show? On Friday, yeah.
One sec.
Maybe we shouldn't talk about Whitsitt.
Oh, okay. I mean, we'll just round out though. What was he asked to show?
Hold on, I was wanting to talk to him.
Instead of discussing what we are not going to talk about, let's just talk about something.
Well, thank you, Arwin. That's so
well, that's what I was going to address what Morgile said.
Go ahead, John.
I was going to say what Morgile said about the atomic model of the tiny solar system. We don't adhere to that. I don't think anybody does. It's just a way of describing valency. That's all that's about. Because you got to remember, the thing that you're trying to describe in the model is not necessarily the thing itself. That would be a reification.
Right. It's just a
Yeah, I get it.
theme.
I get it. And we have to have placeholders for, what has been established, and we have to go with the models that have been used. Obviously we're standing on the shoulders of people before us, but I just, I try to avoid personally going down that slippery slope where, people just get too invested into the models. So, and again, I'm not going to get mad at anybody for using the molecular model, even though I agree, I don't adhere to it at all. Like, I don't think there's molecules at all. I lean more towards, Tesla, where the smallest parts of all things are just basically energy vibrating at lower frequency.
I beg to differ because Nikola Tesla said, before the electron theory was advanced, I had established that radioactive rays consisted of particles of primary matter, not further decomposable.
There's a name for that. Quantum.
Yeah, Tesla was an atomist.
So I don't know whose Jedi mind tricked you, but you better do some research into
what I'm saying is more along the lines of, if you want to understand the keys of the universe, think more in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. So,
but that's
more
an
along those lines.
generalized statement.
That's a generalized philosophy.
Exactly.
Didn't you hear what I just said? You want me to repeat it? It's like we need Tesla, right? We've already dealt with this back in the 1900s. We'll do the Pete and Pete thing with you if you want.
What's the Pete and Pete thing?
We won't. Adam will, because I'm not friggin' doing it.
I don't know what the Pete and Pete thing
Well,
is.
hold
What are
on.
you talking about?
Energy. The Pete and Petey thing is to just deny that things like what Refracted was just talking about, basic understanding of valency and how things actually work in and how they relate to the physical world, to deny those mechanisms that we have in chemistry, to deny all that knowledge, just to go to. And this is I've got no problem with critiquing anything. Critique away. Hopefully some of it's valid if yeah, because we're dealing with models here fundamentally, as Refractor said, you're not reifying this. Yeah. But to just if all you've got is to abandon the standards you've had to attack something and then lower your standards to imagineer something new based on lower standards or no standards, just your own conception of things, that's where there's a point of objection. That's where it becomes pointless. This is throwing the baby out with the bathwater, isn't it? This is the frustrating point to hear from our side.
Oh, hold on.
Well,
hold on. Give it a chance.
It doesn't mean anything
Hold
anymore.
on, Arwin. You made that summary based on about 5 words. He said it was about frequency, vibration. I can't remember the rest of the statement. He's given a really broad summary of what he said he might believe, and we've not actually heard anything from him. I don't know what he's got to say on that very broad subject that he gave us an overview of with those few words. But to express your disappointment so soon, we haven't heard anything from him yet. Might be fascinating.
Okay.
What about frequency and
I
vibration?
would say frequency, vibration, and energy of what,
you,
though?
Refracted.
Of matter?
Just 1 second. Not you, Refracted. Morgile.
So I guess what my point is oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Let me go back on mute.
No, at all. I'm asking. I'm inviting.
You go ahead.
And everyone else, calm down. Hello.
That's also.
I'm inviting Morgile to tell us before he gets condemned for his brief summary of what it could be. He might have just summarised it off the cuff and go, oh, well, actually, no, I don't necessarily mean it in that way. I mean it in this way. But we just want to know from you, Morgile, what you mean when you say, rather than particles or whatever it is you're decrying, fine for the reasons that we've agreed upon so far. We haven't got any further into it. But what of frequency and vibration? Sell me, if you know what I mean.
Well, so I guess what I mean is if we had a microscope that was somehow powerful enough to get down to the atomic level and see things that are hypothetically that tiny, I just don't believe we're going to see little solar systems with rings of electrons orbiting around them with, your valence electrons at the edges to form the chemical bonds. Now, I'm not saying there is no such thing as chemical bonds or the mathematical description of that has painstakingly, taken capital S science generations to come up with. I think there's definitely something to that. And sure, we have to have models that we can visualize because people are, we think in images, I think, a lot of the time. I just don't agree with the model that, again, if you could see the smaller parts of everything, I just don't think you're going to find little atoms. That's all I'm saying.
And we would potentially agree on that.
It's a straw man.
Thank you,
Because
Arwin.
there
Thank
is
you.
no claim.
Thank you, Arwin.
There's no claim of it. So visual.
Thank you, Arwin. Try that 4th time. What I want you to do, or what I wanted you to do, Morgile, is expand on what you mean when you say, I think it's more like Tesla said with frequency and vibration. Tell me more.
So, okay. Yeah, I see what you mean. So, this is just what I sort of ponder. I don't have any experimental evidence to back it up, but I think that all matter is just low vibrational state energy, right? In a nutshell. That's what I believe.
What does that mean?
So, I hate to be harsh. I really don't care what you believe or what anyone else believes.
Well, and somebody asked, y'all asked, so I answered. So you can not care what I believe, then don't ask what I believe.
I don't think he asked you. I don't think Nathan asked you what you believe.
Can I ask? Can I please get a vote?
Hold on a second, Arwin.
I'll let you go after. Okay, let's get some order because Arwin obviously wants to get speaking. QE, go ahead. Then
Go
Arwin.
ahead, Arwin.
Go ahead, QE. Then Arwin.
Oh, go ahead, Let's get Arwin. Let's get it all out of his system so we can get down to the brass tacks. Go ahead, Arwin.
I only need half an hour then. Okay, so
Morgile's the star.
vibration of what? That's not your cue, Neil. Vibration of what? Yeah, vibration is something moving. It's like a wave, right? It's like a wave of what? So vibration, energy of what? Right? Because energy doesn't vibrate. Energy is energy. It doesn't have a body to shake. So what is moving? This is pure logic.
So, okay. Well, so I guess maybe a better way to put it instead of vibration would be like a harmonic resonance frequency, right? I don't know. Maybe there's not a good way to describe what I'm trying to come across.
Is this?
It's the same thing. A harmonic frequency.
Yeah,
it's a vibration. Is something that's happening to something else, right?
Is this some hill that you would potentially die on? Or are you just spitballing, Morgile?
I'm not dying on any hill. I'm trying to describe to you guys where I'm at with my beliefs, because for the longest time I was adherent to the molecular model of things and believed that was actually what was going on in the smaller parts of everything. And now I'm not so sure about that, and I'm really in amazement of the whole thing that creation is, right? This crazy world that we're in. And how we were all deceived for so long about not just the ball, but I think also things all over science, right? Or what we would call science, like, for like the atomic model, right? So really, I am a truth seeker, man, and I don't claim to have all the answers, but I just don't believe in the molecular and atomic model as truth.
Really?
That makes sense.
What are you communicating with us right now with, please?
I'm
just want to know
South Carolina.
I'm not talking to you, Arwin. You had your time. We're going to get back to what he thinks Tesla thought, because we weren't asking him what you thought vibration meant, John. We were asking what Tesla thought, but we're going to get back to that. What are you using to communicate with us right now, John? Sorry, Morgile?
I'm on a phone.
You're on a phone that contains billions of transistors, correct?
Right.
You know those transistors and semiconductors, yeah? You know what they're all based on?
I guess you're going to tell me? What do you mean?
The quantum mechanics atomic structure there, John.
Okay.
Were you aware of that?
Quantum mechanics structure. Okay, great.
Quantum mechanics atomic structure that was offered back in 1920s. That's where we're at right now.
Right.
So, do we
So
want
you
to
mean
go
a
back?
transistor that's basically either yes or no, on or off? It's the I/O thing, right? On or off.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
basically
like
binary.
diode. Yeah, like those types of things. Yes.
Well, structure, and that means
Okay.
there are things there. Atoms are real. Molecules are real.
Arwen,
They have a
please,
structure.
please spare us your colour commentary. Please, just let John and John talk.
Commentary.
I'm going to hold
Yeah, and
back
I
on
don't.
most
I
of this.
don't claim to know much about transistors, but I understand the concept that they've basically got two states, on or off, and that's what all of computer languages are built on. Is that on or off states, right?
There's switches. It goes a little bit deeper than that, but yes, they and where did they get that from? Semiconductors. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
How do I do it?
So essentially, what you're doing is you don't believe in that stuff. It's like Mario Andretti getting stopped in the middle of the race and the dying internal combustion engines. That's where you're at right now. Just want you to know.
So what you're saying is semiconductors, therefore atom theory. I don't make the connection to what you're saying.
No, the atom's not a theory. No, it's not atom theory. No, it's the quantum mechanical structure of the atom, not atom theory.
Okay.
You know, the entire electronics industry as a whole, the computer communications, spectroscopy, solar energy, fiber optics, radiology, all of it, everything that you use every day, barcode scanners, pulse oximeters, everything is based on semiconductors. The whole thing.
Did someone piss in your Cheerios this morning? It wasn't me, I promise.
Listen, I'm not pissed at you, right? I'm just tired of this generalized horse shit, right? That has no bearing on reality. I mean, this was all solved 100 fucking years ago. And I got to go back here because I got some numpty dipshits who want to substitute this ether horse shit, and then deny everything else because they're friggin' frauds. I'm not saying you are. I'm saying there's a lot of Jedi mind tricking going on. And this all comes down to, and I used to talk about this back in the day. I used to say during the science presentations, here are other pseudosciences. You know, paleontology, anthropology, archaeology, geology, evolutionary biology, whatever that is. And yes, I'm still laughing. Astronomy, astrophysics, and cosmology. They're all pseudosciences. They're all demonstrated pseudoscience. There's no doubt about that. And then I caveated and I said, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater and throw the actual sciences, that is physics, quantum mechanics, parts of chemistry, biochemistry, genetics, and parts of biology. Don't you just, by mere fiat, not you, John, but don't put those in that same category and throw the baby out with the bathwater, because if you do, I'm going to hand you your ass. Not you, John, but in general. I said that hundreds of times in every single presentation I've done on science. Where are we at right now? Everyone throwing the baby out with the bathwater because they know they've been lied to by the other pseudosciences. Now they're clumping all the actual sciences in with them and just tossing them away. That's at the root of this. Follow?
Solipsism. It's like, oh, there's something wrong. Oh, that means we can start from scratch and just make everything up.
Thank you, Arwen. He was asking Morgile if he followed along with what he just said to Morgile, but thank you for the 5th time.
Yeah, no, I get it, and I honestly, I'm not here to argue with anybody about their beliefs. Honestly, really, I was just doing a mic check to make sure that my phone was going to work with Discord, and I didn't want to interrupt y'all's after show. I really didn't, but I've been wanting to link up with you, Nathan, for a while, and so I think now that I've done this nice little dry run with my phone and pissed off some people royally in the process inadvertently, it was good to
No,
link up with you guys.
Not at all.
do that?
Not at all.
You didn't.
This
You
is how
didn't
we
come
talk
here
to
to
each other.
argue about
Don't-
beliefs. That's not what just happened.
Yeah, nobody's
And no
pissed.
one's upset
Nobody's
at you
upset.
specifically, which John was very careful to let you know that. Why would you respond that way?
That's how John talks, by the way. Gonna have to get out of the habit of it myself.
Oh,
That's just how Quantum Eraser talks. He'll probably interrupt me
Yeah.
with some blasphemous platitude in between as well, like "Oh my God" or something like that.
Yeah, he talks to all of us that way. Don't feel bad.
Eli's sentiment is true. We're not talking about beliefs here. And John is not angry now. He's just always angry.
Gotcha.
But I'm not.
Okay.
It's just
That's
just
his happy
passion.
voice.
It's
Sorry,
just
can you stop
passion.
rumpusing QE? He needs to pretend to be nice for a few seconds. Go ahead, QE.
Hey,
It's
Mark,
just, I'm not. It's just I'm passionate about it. That's all.
Hey,
Oh,
y'all
I'm
are y'all
happy
are,
I feel
with
you.
the- What about my favorite color? I mean,
y'all are missing it.
bring
And
that up. That
y'all are missing it. And Nathan, don't you touch that dial. This is the problem. Every time this portion of the conversation gets cleared up, or we attempt not to be straw men, someone says, "Well, I'm not here to argue with anyone. I'm just," and then the problem perpetuates because when we're not around, what happens? We get straw men because it's like, well, they have their beliefs and we have our. No, that's a false dichotomy, fam. Like, and I'm not upset at you. I just want clear language to happen so that this particular thing that you, because everything you said today is no different than anything any of my other friends on the other side have said. And I try to be clear about what I know and the limitations of what I know. And it always circles back to, well, I'm not really trying to argue. And to keep it real, that's what Globers do when you try to tell them that they're affirming the consequent or begging the question or reifying their model, while telling us we're doing that and that they're not here to debate or get into any arguments. And I'm just like, if we want everyone to be on the up and up and everyone to be honest, whenever someone asks you a point blank question like, okay, here's what you think and this is what it is, you should just respond directly instead of trying to make it this weird your beliefs versus my beliefs thing, unless you can justify that we've been talking about beliefs.
Eli's on point. Got to give it to him.
Yep, that was spot on.
Am I going to get to family gush some more yet, or should I wait a little bit longer?
No,
I think that's okay. Like
Fix
3
your
times, Morgile's told us really he just wanted to check that this worked, say a quick hello, and then bugger off. However, this would be a nice exit moment for Morgile if, let's get the terminology rather than John, refracted curvature just said a little hello and introduced himself, maybe gave him a little bit of a heads up about backstory, things like that, and then Morgile can go away with a little smile on his face. That's all.
Yeah,
good
I
to me,
was
man.
one of your personal Glover trolls for, I'd say at least about a year.
Oh,
I would
really?
watch your videos and, oh yeah, I was a complete globe head for a bit. And, yeah, so I always wanted the chance to apologize to you in person. And sorry, I probably said some stuff that was really out of the way to you. And I just wanted you to know that.
Nah, man. No, it's all good, brother. I know how it is, man. Like, flat Earth is such a just absolutely ridiculous concept according to the mainstream. According to the way we were raised, and so I don't take it personally. And in fact, I recently had a phone call, the first phone call I've had with a globe Earth believer in a long time, and he was very passionate about it. Like, I don't know, a lot of times I tend to think that the people on the globe Earth or like the anti-flat earthers are agents, right? I think there is a lot of that out there. But, when you get to know the person and talk to him and realize that, this person does appear to be passionate, the only thing you can do is just keep hitting them with facts and you can't, you can't get your feelings hurt, right? I mean, I got thick enough skin to where no hard feelings, and I'm glad that that you came out the other side, understanding the truth, man. And so if I had any small part in that, then I'm tickled pink, and I love it. That's why I do what I do. It's definitely not for the love from the globe trolls. It's definitely not for any sort of monetary gain, but because I am passionate about flat Earth and passionate about the truth, and yeah, no hard feelings, man. None at all.
Are we gonna get any clarity on your statement about saying you're not here to, debate against anyone's beliefs? Could you be more specific about that? Like what beliefs are you not here to debate about?
What I literally meant was I wanted to come pop in and do a mic check, and that's why I came in towards the end at the
That's kind of a non
after show.
sequitur, don't you think? Because
I think
what
you're
does that have
reaching.
to
I think
do with?
he's trying to make his excuses, and he's gone. No, I'm not here to get into any debate with anybody's beliefs. You picked up on that word and gone. Hang on a minute. What we've got here, son, isn't beliefs.
So my belief, and regardless of what anyone else thinks,
belief. I'm sorry.
I don't believe that little atoms and molecules exist. I don't believe in nuclear bombs. Okay, I believe in electric circuits, but I don't believe that it's little daisy chains of physical electrons that are, causing the light bulb to go. I just don't believe that. And again, so if I'm arguing, I don't want to argue my beliefs. Let me put it that way.
And that's based on what?
Doesn't matter what it's based on. It's his beliefs. He's not trying to tell me it's something else.
Fair enough.
So if somebody says, I don't believe that, I'm cool with that. As long as they don't say, but here's a load of shit you should believe, presented with much lower standards.
Do we believe in what we...
Hold on, Elijah. I didn't hear anything Adam said, and then you can go. Go ahead, Adam. I didn't hear a word you said.
I just said, as long as somebody... Like when I in chat sometimes, it's prefaced with, these are my beliefs. Well, believe all you like. As long as you're not telling anybody else, I'm fine with that. Yeah, if you're not presenting other information as if that's reality, then believe what you like. This is flat Earth debate, not belief debate, is it? We don't come and say, I believe this. We ask for support, and don't hear Morgile wanting to present some grand scheme of the new physics. I just hear him saying, I just don't believe in the minutiae. All right, we've made the point that I think ultimately we realize it's a conceptual model. Yeah, we don't think they're little orbiting electrons as well.
That's what I want them to hear. Say it again.
There's nothing wrong with that. Is that?
No, say it again.
We'd already said it.
Because
We'd
they don't
already
understand that.
None of us believe that, and we had a point of concession with Morgile in that respect. That it was a point of agreement already. So there's no we need to make that explicitly clear. We don't believe in the whole reified description of the orbital motion of electrons. There you go. Is that what you wanted to hear?
Thank you very much. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. I mean, I've got to say at this point that was probably the most epic mic check anybody will ever hear. But with that, I'm going to say another huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.